Chapter 2087 Spirited Mountain. With an unstoppable momentum, Howard crossed the southern and central regions. He led the people from the prince consort's residence and slowly landed at the foot of the spiritual mountain. Looking up at the top of Spirited Mountain that was surrounded by clouds, he slowly raised his arm and pointed at the top of the mountain and shouted softly, "Space Storm." Following Howard's shout, the 9 storms that appeared out of thin air at the top of Spirited Mountain instantly blew away the clouds and mist, and at the same time, they also began to destroy the Buddha chair in the clouds and the top of Spirited Mountain. However, when the first storm had just reached a Buddha chair at the edge of the top of the mountain, a giant Buddha hand that was emitting a dazzling golden light suddenly flew out from the high platform of the mountainside of Spirited Mountain. The golden Buddha hand stretched out its 5 fingers and slammed into the first space storm. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar, the golden Buddha hand that was covering the sky was smashed into pieces by the rotating power of the space storm just as it hit the space storm. Immediately after, the space storm swept the Buddha chair violently and directly crushed the Buddha chair that had been erected for countless years into powder. Damn it! Seeing that the Buddha chair that belonged to him was crushed, the Buddha who had just used the golden Buddha hand cursed and rushed into the space storm. I'll go. Seeing that the Buddha expert who rushed into the space storm was a Buddha at the peak of the 9th grade supreme realm, Yusiki, who had taken the opportunity to draw the celestial slashing sword, asked for instructions. Go. Be careful. With the help of the space law crystal and several divine elixir pills, Yusiki's cultivation not only reached the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm, but also her state of mind cultivation, physical body grade, divine power, and soul power had all advanced to the peak of the 7th grade supreme realm. At the same time, her comprehension of the profound mysteries of the laws had also reached the peak level. The sword technique of the Grand Supreme Legacy combined with the celestial slashing sword had already given her the strength to challenge the peak of the 9th grade supreme realm. Therefore, in the face of Yusiki's initiative to fight, Howard nodded and agreed without much hesitation. Junior, are you looking down on the Buddha who subdues demons? Seeing Yusiki charging at him with a sword in hand, the Buddha, who was only a peak 9th grade martial god and was attacking the spatial storm with all his might, immediately felt furious at being underestimated. He immediately swung his golden Buddha hand forward. Boom! Following a deafening explosion, not only was the golden Buddha's hand shattered by Yusiki, but her speed also increased, allowing her to instantly appear in front of the demon, subduing Buddha. Then, the sword technique of the Supreme Inheritance, combined with the celestial slashing sword that had unleashed all of its power, pierced into the demon, subduing Buddha's forehead. Although he knew that Howard's close friends and family were all monstrous geniuses capable of challenging superpowers, demon-subduing Buddha had never imagined that a young girl like Howard would possess the frightening strength to surpass an entire major realm. Therefore, his initial underestimation and disbelief made him unable to mobilize more Buddhist power and soul power to defend himself. In the end, Yusiki's frightening sword aura forcefully broke through the defense of his consciousness. If not for the fact that Buddhism itself focused on the cultivation of the divine soul, and if not for his close friend, the demon-subduing Buddha, helping him in time, Yusiki's sword technique would have destroyed his divine soul. However, even if he was lucky enough to avoid certain death, his divine soul that was swept by the frightening sword aura also suffered unimaginable damage, causing his strength to drop to the peak of the 7th grade supreme realm. In the face of the 2 Buddhas, who were both at the peak of the 7th grade supreme realm and the 9th grade supreme realm, Yusiki fearlessly swung her celestial slashing sword to meet them. Seeing that Yusiki was at a disadvantage, Qin Lingfei suggested with a worried expression, "Prince Consort, do you want to send someone to help my sister?" No need. Although she was at a disadvantage, it was only temporary. Howard believed that his sister, whose potential was constantly being stimulated, could gradually turn the situation around and kill the demon-subduing Buddha and the demon-subduing Buddha. Therefore, in the face of Qin Lingfei's suggestion, Howard shook his head and rejected it. What happened next directly confirmed his conjecture. Under the pressure of life and death, Yusiki, while constantly stimulating her own potential, successfully advanced to the early stage of an 8th-grade supreme martial artist. Moreover, she made use of the moment of her breakthrough to find a fatal flaw in the demon-slaying Buddha. In the end, she used the celestial slashing sword to severely injure the demon-subduing Buddha, causing its strength to drop to the early stage of the 9th-grade supreme realm. The strength of the early stage of the 9th-grade supreme realm and the peak of the 7th-grade supreme realm no longer posed a threat to Yusiki. Therefore, she used the demon-subduing Buddha and the demon-subduing Buddha to temper her sword technique, to quickly adapt to the sudden increase in strength in her body. Regardless of whether the demon-subduing Buddha was severely injured, causing its strength to drop, or the two Buddhas facing imminent danger, the Buddhist powerhouses of the mystical mountain did not continue to help. In the end, not only were the demon-subduing Buddha and the demon-subduing Buddha killed by Yusiki, but the 9 space storms also destroyed nearly 1/3 of the Buddha chairs. Let me take you on. Just as Yusiki successfully killed the demon-subduing Buddha and the demon-subduing Buddha's souls and was about to return to the foot of the mystical mountain, a Buddha whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th-grade supreme realm soared into the sky and directly condensed 2 golden Buddha palms that covered the sky. One of the golden Buddha palms directly slapped toward Yusiki, whose strength had been greatly depleted, while the other palm slapped toward the 5th space storm. Prince Consort, hurry up and do something. Killing 2 powerhouses of the same level at the same time caused Yusiki's strength to be depleted by at least 70%. Without overdrawing her potential, divine power, and soul power, she could only exert the strength of the early 9th-grade supreme realm at the most. Therefore, Qin Lingfei's expression changed abruptly when she saw the Buddha with a higher cultivation and stronger strength taking action. In response, Howard only patted her jade-like hand gently and shook his head to indicate that she did not need to worry. Woo! Just when the golden Buddha palms were less than 100 meters away from Yusiki, a loud roar suddenly resounded from the void above her head. Immediately after, a huge tiger claw as big as a mountain appeared out of thin air and clashed with the golden Buddha palms that were blasting toward her. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar, the tiger claw easily shattered the golden Buddha palms and clawed toward the Buddha without any reduction in power. Thousand-armed Buddha, save me. The Buddha could clearly feel a trace of a mortal aura contained in the tiger claw and knew that the opponent was an expert who had just entered the half-tribulation immortal realm. At the same time, he was horrified and quickly asked for help from another Buddha on the high platform at the mountainside. Unfortunately, the thousand-armed Buddha did not immediately save his friend when he heard his friend's hoarse cry for help. Chapter 2088. In the end, the Buddha was crushed into a mist of blood by the tiger claw with a miserable howl. After glancing at the countless Buddhist experts with her cold and indifferent eyes, Yusiki put away the celestial slashing sword in her hand and returned to Howard's side. Then, she sat cross-legged and began to recover her strength. Boom! Along with the booming sounds, the Buddha chairs were crushed by the 9 space storms one after another. However, none of the Buddhists or Buddha lords tried to stop them. After the hundreds of Buddhist chairs were completely destroyed by the spatial storm, the 9 spatial storms gradually merged together to form an even more powerful spatial storm. Then, the space storm, which was at least 10 times more powerful, rolled toward the peak of Spiritual Mountain. Damn it! The experts of Buddhism who had been silent for a while saw Howard's space storm begin to destroy the peak of Spirited Mountain. A Buddha lord whose cultivation base had reached 1 tribulation immortal realm shouted angrily. He quickly condensed a golden Buddha palm that could cover the sky and the sun, and then slapped the space storm fiercely. I'll deal with him. Among the people in the prince's mansion, only Howard, Thaling, who controlled Mu Beiying's body, and Blood Void Beast, who had recovered to the peak of one tribulation immortal realm with the help of the Space Rules energy crystal. As the backbone of the group, Yu Haoran could not take action before a full-scale conflict broke out. Thawing, who was infinitely close to the second tribulation immortal realm, would be their trump card at the critical moment. Similarly, he could not take action in advance. Therefore, Blood Void Beast could only take the initiative to ask for help when he saw the one tribulation immortal realm Buddha Lord taking action. "Make it quick," Yu Haoran nodded and ordered. "Got it." Blood Void Beast replied with a nod. With the help of the Space Rules energy, it appeared in front of the space storm in an instant. Then, it whipped its tail, which was growing rapidly, and smashed the golden Buddha palm that covered the sky. "You're courting death." When the Buddha Lord saw his golden palm being shattered by the Blood Void Beast, he cursed inwardly and leaped into the air to attack the Blood Void Beast. At the same time, for more one tribulation immortal realm Buddha Lord soared into the sky and cooperated with the first Buddha Lord to attack the Blood Void Beast. Good timing. The Blood Void Beast was fearless in the face of the oncoming pincer attack, and a sea of crimson blood immediately surged from its body. With the support of the rule of space, the blood sea expanded rapidly and covered the 5 one tribulation immortal realm Buddha Lords. Then, the Blood Void Beast rushed into the blood sea excitedly. Not good. The moment the Blood Void Beast charged into the blood sea, Buddha Lord Su, who was sitting cross-legged at the top of the high platform, sensed the fall of a Buddha Lord. His expression couldn't help but change. He raised his arm and made a mark with his finger. "Your doppelganger has merged with the projection, so you have the strength of a 2 tribulation immortal realm Buddha. So, your opponent is me, the giant spirit devouring ant, who had received Yu Haoran's order, soared into the sky and exposed Buddha Lord Su's true strength. Bodhi Clear Sky Buddha Lord, lend me a hand." Although the giant spirit devouring ant's cultivation hadn't recovered to its peak, its strength wasn't something that Buddha Lord Su could easily deal with. Therefore, Buddha Lord Shu, who had soared into the sky, called out to another Buddha Lord who was also at the peak of the second tribulation immortal stage. The giant spirit devouring ant successfully held back the 2 Buddha Lords, causing the space storm to engulf the peak of Mount Spiritual. It started to destroy and shatter Mount Spiritual, which represented the inheritance of Buddhism. Seeing this, Buddha Lord Su, who was also a 2 tribulation immortal realm Buddha Lord, waved his wide Buddhist robe and blasted a terrifying Buddhist power toward the space storm. However, the moment Buddha Lord Su waved his robe, Yu Haoran destroyed a purple hair in his hand with the aura of destiny. Roar! Then, a roar that sounded like a dragon, a flood dragon, and a beast was heard. With a deafening roar, the ferocious beast Qi appeared above Spirited Mountain after shattering the terrifying power of Buddha Lord Faxianjitian. Qi, the leader of the 10 great ancient fierce beasts. When the skinny senior monk saw the ferocious demonic beasts, he suddenly opened his eyes, and his expression changed drastically. At the same time, he said to Siki Futian, who was also at the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm, "I'll leave fierce beast Qi to you." Dishi Futian Buddha Lord Su ordered Buddha Lord Su, who was also a 2 tribulation immortal realm Buddha Lord Su. "Lend me a hand." "No problem." After nodding in response, Buddha Lord Su also soared into the sky and rushed toward fierce beast Qi when Dishi Futian Buddha Lord Su and Buddha Lord Su soared into the sky to meet fierce beast Qi, the skinny senior monk, whose 9th grade white lotus throne was gradually rising under him, smiled and invited Su Hanwen to fight. "Brother Su, how about we fight? It's my honor to fight with the true creator of Buddhism, Amitabha Buddha Lord Su, who has the talent to become immortal." After praising the other party politely, Su Hanwen took out the willow branch and left a reminder. Then, he rushed toward the skinny Shang monk who was slowly rising into the sky. "Yu Haoran, be careful." The fight between Su Hanwen and the creator of Buddhism, Amitabha Buddha Lord Su, indicated that the decisive battle between the prince's mansion and Buddhism on Spirited Mountain had officially begun. Yu Haoran, who suddenly pulled out the immortal slaying sword, ordered the soul rat in his heart space to control the fate of all the Buddhist experts below the mid-ninth grade supreme realm. Then, he led his close relatives and friends, the elite soldiers and disciples of the Northern Road, and rushed towards Spirited Mountain. At the same time, millions of Buddhist experts above the martial sage realm on the high platform of Spirited Mountain also soared into the sky to meet the people of the prince's mansion who were rushing toward them. Amitabha Buddha, Lord Shirsu, and Dishifutian Buddha, Lord Shirsu intended to use the deaths of millions of Buddhist experts and believers to weaken the restrictions of the heavenly way on the experts lurking in the endless void so that they could arrive at the peak of their realm. Therefore, they did not tell the millions of Buddhist experts in advance that Yu Haoran, who had the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Soul Rat, had the ability to control the fate of countless creatures and had the means to weaken them instantly. This led to a large number of Buddhist experts who had soared into the sky to suddenly lose more than 90% of their Buddhist power and soul power and fell from the clouds in a panic. Just the life-stealing spirit mouse's ability to suddenly control the fate of its opponents and instantly extract 90% of their strength had caused more than 50,000 martial sages and martial saints to be smashed into a bloody pulp, their souls directly scattered under the scorching sun. Chapter 2089. Spirited Mountain. Seeing the millions of Buddhist experts who had fallen at the foot of Spirited Mountain, just like the millions of experts from the four guardian families who had besieged the prince's mansion, Lan Rong, whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th level of Emperor Wu, knew that it was their turn to make a strong move. Therefore, he immediately took out the divine sword that Thaling had personally refined for him, and then sternly ordered the more than 60,000 elite soldiers of the Northern Road behind him. Soldiers, kill them. Then, Qin Lingfei, Palace, Qing Feng, who were slightly weaker, 36 helm messengers who were at the peak of the 9th level of the martial god realm, more than 60,000 elite soldiers of the Northern Road, and hundreds of disciples in the martial king and martial emperor realms from the 100 Qi Gate immediately rushed into the millions of Buddhist experts with murderous intent, and began a massacre that was no stranger to them. Yu Haoran led the sword without trace. Yu Siki, Wu Jingjun, Lu Yuan, long-armed ape, Thaling, who controlled Mu Fengying's body, and 21 experts from the Hell Organization to confront the Buddhas and Buddha Lords who were at the middle stage of the 9th level of the Supreme Martial Artist. Soul Slayer. With the strength of the peak of the 9th level of the Supreme Martial Artist, coupled with the God-slaying sword, he easily killed a Buddha at the peak of the 9th level of the Supreme Martial Artist with a sword technique inherited from the memory of the Destiny Stone Tablet. Prosperity ends. With the body of Mu Fengying at the peak of the second tribulation of the immortal realm, coupled with the space-time energy in the space-time victor, Thaling directly killed 6 Buddhas at the peak of the 9th level of the Supreme Martial Artist and 2 Buddha Lords of the first tribulation of the immortal realm. Boundless Universe. Long-armed ape, who had activated his ancestor's transformation, severely injured 3 Buddhas at the peak of the 9th level of the Supreme Martial Artist with a secret technique inherited from his bloodline. 4 symbols, God-suppressing formation. The sword without trace's pet beast, the vermilion bird, Yusiki's pet beast, the white tiger, Lu Yuan's blue dragon, and Wu Jingjuan's black tortoise used a formation to trap more than 39th grade Supreme Buddhas and 5 First Tribulation Supreme Buddhas. The prince's mansion was at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers. However, under Yu Haoran's frenzied attacks, the pagoda spirit's desperate attacks, and the blood void beast's relentless use of the spatial law crystal's energy, Yu Haoran's initial disadvantage gradually evened out, and he eventually gained the upper hand, especially when the sword without trace, Yu Siki, Lu Yuan, and Wu Zhengjun cooperated with the 4 divine beasts to successfully kill the trapped Buddhas and Buddhas. The scales of victory completely tilted towards the prince's mansion. After overdrawing 1/3 of his divine power and soul power, Yu Haoran managed to severely injure a Buddha lord in the middle stage of the immortal realm. Then, he used the space rule martial technique of teleportation to escape from the battlefield, while swallowing a sacred elixir to recover his divine power and soul power. Yu Haoran observed the massacre of nearly 1 million Buddhists. Then he was surprised to find that the blood of the Buddhas and Buddhas that they had just killed, and the Buddhas that Qin Ling Fei and the others had killed, did not seep into the ground of Spirited Mountain. The evil spirit and resentment after death did not soar into the sky. Instead, they were all swallowed by an inexplicable force. The disappearance of blood, evil spirit, and resentment would not increase the energy of the destiny rule in the Destiny Stone Tablet, nor would it weaken the suppression of the heavenly way on the endless void. Thinking about the guarantee given by the first clone and the mysterious actions of the first clone recently, Yu Haoran was suspicious. He also planned to ask the first clone after the battle of the spiritual mountain. Taking a deep breath, he mobilized part of his divine power and soul power that he had recovered from the divine pill and continued to kill the remaining Buddhas and Buddhas. Soon, it's almost over 1 million. Dishi Futian was paying attention to the massacre at the foot of Spirited Mountain while using his overdrawn Buddhist power and soul power to fend off the attack of the ferocious beasts. When the death count of the Buddhas exceeded 1 million, Dishi Futian was roaring with excitement in his heart. He immediately used a special secret method to inform the true body of the Buddhas in the endless void and the other 3 true bodies of the Buddhas to rush to the Tianxian continent. When the death count of the Buddhas at the foot of Spirited Mountain reached 3 million, the true bodies of the 4 Buddhas who had rushed to the warning line set by the heavenly way did not hesitate to cross the warning line and rush to the Tianxian continent with murderous intent. When they suddenly felt the 4 terrifying auras, whether it was the ferocious beast Qi, the giant spirit devouring ant, or Su Hanwen who was fighting with Amitabha Buddha, they could not help but have a change of expression. This was because the 4 terrifying auras all exuded a shocking amount of Buddhist power. This meant that the 4 terrifying powerhouses who were approaching Spirited Mountain were all powerhouses of Spirited Mountain's Buddhas. Without the slightest hesitation, the ferocious beast Qi, who used the extremely precious fiendish Qi of the origin to force the 2 Buddhas to retreat, immediately expressed to Yu Haoran the reason why he did not continue to intervene. Yu Haoran, according to the agreement between me and my first clone, if the situation of providing assistance is out of control or if it brings me fatal danger, then I have the right to withdraw immediately. So, I'm sorry, I have to withdraw from Spirited Mountain immediately. When they heard the ferocious beast Qi's intention to withdraw from the battlefield, Su Hanwen and the giant spirit devouring ant secretly knew that something was wrong. Just as they were about to reveal their divine power and soul power and prepare to fight for their lives, Yu Haoran's nonchalant voice suddenly sounded in their ears. Thank you for your help, Senior. The following battle will be left to the people of the prince's mansion. After the fairy's slaying sword directly wiped out a severely injured Buddha lord, Yu Haoran withdrew and replied with a smile with cupped fists. Yu Haoran's nonchalance immediately attracted the interest of the ferocious beast Qi, therefore. He did not rush back to Qinghu mountain range after leaving the battlefield. Instead, he stopped at the peak of a mountain 30,000 kilometers away from Spirited Mountain, intending to see how Yu Haoran would deal with the 4 Buddha lords whose cultivation had reached the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm. In fact, it was not only the ferocious beast Qi who wanted to know how Yu Haoran would deal with it. Even Su Hanwen, Amitabha Buddha Lord, the giant spirit devouring ant, Shirshu Zaitian Buddha Lord, and Bodhi Clear Sky Buddha Lord had tacitly chosen to stop and watch the 4 Buddha Lords' real bodies rush into Tianxian continent. Just as the 4 Buddha Lords' real bodies arrived at Tianxian continent's atmosphere, the originally clear sky suddenly became densely covered with dark clouds, accompanied by the depressing sound of thunder that made thousands of creatures feel oppressed. Accompanied by the depressing sound of thunder, a single eye that emitted a cold and ruthless aura gradually condensed in the dark clouds. This is impossible. This is impossible. Chapter 2090. Spirited Mountain. Not only did Dishifutian Buddha Lord's true body and doppelganger find it hard to believe that the heavenly way had suddenly condensed a single eye. Even Amitabha Buddha Lord, the terrifying experts in the forbidden land of Tianxian continent, and some second tribulation and third tribulation immortal experts who were watching the battle of Spirited Mountain from the endless void were also in disbelief and doubt. As the immeasurable calamity of heaven and earth's destruction was about to descend, every living thing that died in Tianxian continent would have a certain influence on the heavenly way's rules. At the same time, after the deaths of millions of experts above the martial saint realm from the four guardian families, everyone present had already calculated the degree of restriction of the heavenly way's rules. The deaths of 3 million Buddha experts, especially the thousands of Buddhas at the peak of 9th grade martial venerable realm, and dozens of first tribulation immortal realm Buddha lords, could at least limit 1/3 of the heavenly way's power. It was enough to allow the terrifying experts at the peak of second tribulation immortal realm to return to Tianxian continent smoothly. But what was the final result? Looking at the gradually condensing single eye, some second tribulation and third tribulation immortal experts who had special thoughts quickly extinguished the thoughts of taking risks in their minds. Sensing the fatal danger, the four Buddha lords did not hesitate at all. They immediately turned around and planned to escape Tianxian continent. However, as the single eye shot out 4 purple thunderbolts that were as thick as an arm, the 4 Buddha lords, who had cultivated for countless years and finally reached the peak of terrifying experts, did not even have the chance to resist. They were directly blasted into countless powder by the purple thunderbolts. No! Just as the purple thunderbolts destroyed the 4 Buddha lords' true bodies, Dishifutian Buddha Lord, Fa-Cien Jatian Buddha Lord, Bodhiching Tian Buddha Lord, and Shirshu Tian Jatian Buddha Lord, who were floating in the clouds of Spirited Mountain, shouted indignantly at the same time. The doppelganger bodies in the projection automatically burned after that. Buddha Lord Sarira. Seeing the 4 Buddha lords burning doppelganger bodies, slowly refining 8 9-colored crystals the size of a dragon's eye, Yuhaoran shouted out the origin of the crystals in surprise. Then, the speed of space rules allowed him to quickly rush to the front of the 8 9-colored Sarira, and then he put away the Sarira in ecstasy. The 9-colored Sarira, also known as the Enlightenment Sarira, was a top-notch treasure used to greatly increase one's comprehension and raise one's mental state cultivation. A peak second tribulation Buddha, Lord's 9-colored Sarira, could help a peak 9th grade supreme being directly advance to the peak first tribulation immortal realm. 8 Buddha Lord's 9-colored Sarira at the peak of the second tribulation realm could help a peak second tribulation immortal realm expert reach the early third tribulation undying realm. Therefore, after seeing Yuhaoran obtain 8 9-colored Sariras, the terrifying powerhouses in the endless void and the forbidden zone all revealed deep envy and jealousy in their eyes. This also made the Danglong, who had taken the initiative to withdraw from the battlefield, reveal a look of regret in its eyes. If he hadn't taken the initiative to withdraw from the battlefield just now and had chosen to risk his life like the King of Hell, Yuhaoran would definitely have given him 1 or 2 9-colored Sariras of the Buddha Lord. With his current comprehension, 1 or 2 9-color relics of the Buddha Lord could help his mental state reach the early stage of the third tribulation immortal realm smoothly. Then, with the help of the advancement of mental state, he could forcefully break through the early stage of the third tribulation immortal realm. However, it was too late for regrets now, because the first doppelganger that had willingly refined the 6 paths of reincarnation and the 18 levels of hell had the means to restrain him. He couldn't rely on his valiant strength to snatch the 9-colored relics from Yuhaoran. After putting away the 8 9-colored relics condensed from the burning body of the Buddha Lord's doppelganger, Yuhaoran looked up at Su Hanwen and Amitabha, who were confronting each other. Then, he lowered his head to look at the people in the prince's mansion who were chasing after less than 1 million Buddhists. Finally, his gaze shifted to the remaining few hundred Supreme Being Buddhas and more than 20 Buddha Lords at the First Tribulation Immortal Realm. Kill! Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran waved the fairy, slaying sword in his hand, and rushed toward a severely injured Buddha lord. He roared with murderous intent. Yu Haoran's roar immediately alerted the stunned blood-void beast, Faling, and the others. They also rushed toward the Buddhas and Buddha lords with murderous intent. The giant spirit-devouring ant, who had lost its opponent, also looked up at Amitabha, who was sitting on the grade 9 lotus throne. Finally, it turned its head and rushed toward the Buddhas and Buddha lords who were fighting with Yu Haoran and the others. Because he had not recovered his peak strength, he was not qualified to intervene in the battle between Su Hanwen and Amitabha. Amitabha, looking at the experts of Buddhism who were being slaughtered in the air and at the foot of Spirit Mountain, as well as the tens of millions of Buddhist believers who were kneeling and praying within 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, and 100,000 miles, Amitabha Buddha murmured the name of Buddha and slowly closed his eyes. Then, the grade 9 lotus throne began to radiate white light in all directions, forcing Su Hanwen to take 9 steps back. When the dazzling white light made the grade 9 lotus throne look like a burning sun hanging in the sky, the grade 9 lotus throne soared into the sky and went straight into the endless void. Damn it, I was fooled by him. When Su Hanwen saw that the creator of Buddhism, Amitabha, had activated the power of the grade 9 lotus throne with all his strength instead of fighting him to the death, he secretly cursed. Then, he waved the willow branch in his hand and chased after him. Suddenly, he heard Yu Haoran stopping him. "Senior Su, don't chase him." When Su Hanwen stopped and turned back to kill the remaining Buddhas and Buddha lords, Yu Haoran suddenly put away the fairy slaying sword in his hand and stepped toward the high platform halfway up Sacred Mountain. Yu Haoran took a deep breath when he saw the high platform built by the powerhouses of Buddhism on Sacred Mountain. It was 3,650 meters high and covered an area of hundreds of thousands of square meters. Then he took out the crystal coffin that contained the body of his master, Feng Qingyun, from the storage ring and turned his head to order Qin Lingfei, Chu Zhongyu, and the others who were desperately chasing after the powerhouses of Buddhism. "Lingfei, eldest senior brother, second senior brother, all of you come here." Then he looked up and ordered the sword without trace and Wu Jingjun, who were adjusting their qi circulation in midair. "Wuhan, junior brother Jingjun, all of you come here too." When Qin Lingfei, the sword without trace, and the others came to his side, Yu Haoran took out the white mourning clothes, mourning hats, mourning shoes, and mourning ribbons that he had prepared in advance from the storage ring and distributed them to Qin Lingfei and the others. 8 senior brothers, 2 junior brothers, seal your own cultivation, disperse the physical bodies formed by your physical bodies, and carry the coffin to the platform with me. After Chu Zhongyu and the others changed into mourning clothes, Yu Haoran ordered loudly as he walked to the east side of the crystal coffin. "Lift the coffin." After Chu Zhongyu and the others sat down, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and then shouted at the top of his lungs, "Be on your way." Chapter 2091. Spirit Mountain. Walking in unison, the 10 disciples of the Qingyun faction carried the crystal coffin on their shoulders and walked step by step towards the top of the high platform with pained expressions. As the only female disciple of Qingyun faction, Gongsun Yuding walked behind the crystal coffin with tears in her eyes. She held up the portrait that she had personally drawn for her master. In the portrait, Feng Qingyun had a gentle smile on his face and a kind gaze in his eyes. As Yu Haoran's family members, Yu Siki, Qin Lingfei, and the sword without trace followed behind Gongsun Yuding with sorrowful tears in their eyes. As Yu Haoran's direct disciples, Yun Xiang, Feng Man, and Xiang Muling supported Yu Siki, Qin Lingfei, and the sword without trace. However, as they had never interacted with Feng Qingyun before, they only had sorrowful expressions on their faces. There were no tears of sorrow in their eyes. After Mu, Feng broke free from his control. Faling appeared in front of the world in the form of a spirit for the first time. As the person closest to Yu Haoran, Faling was also the first to know and come into contact with Feng Qingyun. He sealed his cultivation and landed behind the sword without trace before ascending the platform with a solemn expression. Su Han attacked in anger. After successfully killing the remaining Buddhas and Buddhist lords, he led Lu Yuan, Palace, Qing Feng, the long-armed ape, the blood-void beast, and the king of hell behind Thaling. He also sealed his cultivation and ascended the platform. The Denglong beast revealed a hesitant expression. In the end, it lowered its head to the crystal coffin. After 3 seconds of silence, it turned and left Spirit Mountain and the western regions. He watched as Yu Haoran, who had sealed his cultivation, and his fellow disciples, who had also sealed their cultivation, carried the coffin. He watched as Yu Haoran's close friends and family all sealed their cultivation and went up the platform to send him off. Whether it was the terrifying experts in the forbidden area or the numerous experts in the endless void, their eyes were filled with envy and jealousy. They envied the deceased Feng Qingyun for receiving such a grand funeral. They envied Feng Qingyun for receiving such a loyal disciple like Yu Haoran. Even if one sealed his cultivation and physical strength, his body, which had been nourished by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and tempered by elemental energy and divine power, had the strength to trample stones and shatter tombstones. Therefore, Yu Haoran and his fellow apprentices, who had never slowed down, spent a total of 9 minutes and 9 seconds to successfully reach the top of the high platform, which was where Amitabha Buddha Lord had sat. "Release the coffin," Yu Haoran shouted. "Retreat." Yu Haoran continued to shout. "Kneel." Yu Haoran took the lead and knelt in front of the crystal coffin. Then, Chu Zhongyu and the other 9 disciples of Qingyun's sect knelt on the platform. Then, the 3 disciples of Gongsun Yuding, Yu Siki, Qin Lingfei, the sword without trace, and Yu Haoran also knelt on the platform. Thaling, Su Han, and the others bowed 90 degrees. "Kneel, kneel." After successfully killing all the fleeing experts of Buddhism and Taoism on Spirited Mountain, more than 60,000 elite soldiers on the Northern Road, as well as hundreds of martial king and martial emperor experts from the 100 Feet sect, all knelt at the foot of Spirited Mountain under the leadership of Lan Rong and Lai Yin. Bang, bang, bang. After kowtowing 9 times in a row, Yu Haoran turned to Wu Jingjun and ordered, "Present your heads to the master." After hearing Yu Haoran's order, Wu Jingjun immediately took out 9 bloody heads from the independent space he opened up and placed them one by one in front of the crystal coffin. "Master, the Lord of Buddhism, Tathagata, who killed you, and the 8 great protectors who tortured you have been killed by the 9th disciple, Yu Haoran, and the 10th disciple, Wu Jingjun." Yu Haoran wrapped the 9 bloody heads with his divine telekinesis and sent them all to the top of the crystal coffin. While reporting the specific situation to his master, he used his divine telekinesis to crush the 9 bloody heads. "Master, when you died, I promised that I would kill my way to Spirit Mountain, destroy the inheritance of Buddhism, kill all the experts of Buddhism, and slaughter tens of millions of followers of Buddhism to avenge you. Now, I have fulfilled 3 of my promises. Only tens of millions of followers of Buddhism are left to accompany you on your journey." Speaking of this, Yu Haoran, who suddenly stood up, unsealed himself and immediately activated the transformation of the ancestral wizard. "Master, after I have slaughtered tens of millions of followers of Buddhism, I will follow your last words and scatter your bones on Breeze Peak." After Yu Haoran transformed into an ancient grand wizard who was millions of meters tall, he roared at the top of his lungs while waving his gigantic palm that blotted out the sky, killing the Buddhist believers who were kneeling and worshipping within a radius of 100 miles, 1,000 miles, and even 10,000 miles. Boom, boom, boom. Accompanied by 2 giant palms that blotted out the sky and bombarded the ground continuously, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers of Buddhism were directly smashed into powder, into meat patties, or even into pieces. At the same time, the divine thoughts of the peak of 9th grade supreme martial artist directly obliterated the followers of Buddhism that the palms missed. Seeing more than 10 million Buddhist believers dying one after another under Yu Haoran's merciless attack with his palms and divine telekinesis. Whether it was the terrifying experts in the Forbidden Grounds, the numerous experts in the Endless Void, or the countless forces and experts in the Tianxin continent, they could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. On the day of Feng Qingyun's fall, although Yu Haoran's horse promise had spread throughout the entire Tianxin continent and the Endless Void, many forces and experts only thought that he would kill his way to Spirit Mountain, destroy the inheritance of Buddhism, and then kill the millions of Buddhism experts. Slaughtering tens of millions of followers of Buddhism was just a means of demonstration, a way to vent the grief in his heart. In the end, he would definitely let go of the unarmed followers of Buddhism. But no one would have thought that the crazy Yu Haoran would be so bloodthirsty, so cold, and so cruel. In the Zhou family in the Dark Lake mountain range, when a majestic middle-aged man in a 9-clawed golden dragon robe saw Yu Haoran crazily slaughtering tens of millions of followers of Buddhism, his face was so solemn that it seemed like it could drip water. The hand behind his back were also tightly clenched. Then he took a deep breath and tried his best to calm down the fear, anger, panic, and intense killing intent in his heart. He stretched out his slender right hand, which was like a woman's, and directly tore open the void in front of him. Then he stepped into the void crack. Then the middle-aged man in the dragon robe appeared in the Hengduan mountain range in the southern region. Without saying anything, he activated the strong emperor aura on his body. Soon, it alerted the half-immortal realm experts of the ancient demon clan in the deep pit in the mountain range. Then a golden bridge formed by divine power extended from the deep pit to the feet of the middle-aged man in the dragon robe. Chapter 2092. Spirited Mountain. With a pair of palms that blotted out the sky, coupled with the divine senses of a peak 9th grade supreme martial artist, 13. 67 million Buddhist believers were all slaughtered by Yu Haoran in less than an hour. The death of millions of Buddhist powerhouses turned the entire Spirited Mountain into a mountain of blood. The death of tens of millions of Buddhist believers turned the area within 1,000 miles of Spirited Mountain into a sea of blood. This made many powerhouses who had personally experienced the destruction of ancient times, the Middle Ages, and the Near Ages have a very strong feeling in their hearts that an immeasurable calamity was about to begin. After slowly dispersing the million-meter wizard transformation, Yu Haoran looked at the sea of blood and the mountain of blood that he had personally created. The anger and hatred in his eyes were gradually replaced by pain. Then he slowly landed on the top of the high platform behind the crystal coffin. He then waved to the people behind him, indicating that they should all retreat from the high platform. Then he walked to the side of the crystal coffin and looked at Feng Qingyun, who was lying quietly in the coffin with a peaceful expression. His eyes revealed a look of reminiscence. He recalled the bits and pieces between him and his master in his previous life, as well as the reunion and misunderstanding between him and his master in this life. The people of the prince's mansion who had retreated from the high platform did not have the slightest bit of blood under their feet. They were all silently waiting for Yu Haoran to recover from his sorrowful mood and wait for his next arrangement. When a memory finally stopped at the scene where his master fell, the painful look in Yu Haoran's eyes was replaced by calmness. Then, 9 dantian fires floated out from his dantian and scattered around the crystal coffin, starting to ignite and burn the crystal coffin that had been carved for 10,000 years. Looking at his master lying in the crystal coffin being devoured by the dantian fire bit by bit, the calm look in his eyes was gradually replaced by indifference. Returned to the prince's mansion. Waving his hand, Yu Haoran put away his master's body that had been burned into white powder by the dantian fire. As he rose into the air, he ordered the people below the high platform. After Yu Haoran left with the people from the prince's mansion, the space storm that appeared out of thin air above Spirited Mountain began to devour and destroy Spirited Mountain. It also completely strangled thousands of Buddhism genius disciples who had hidden in the independent space inside Spirited Mountain in advance. Since then, the inheritance of Buddhism that had been established since the early Middle Ages was basically broken. The remaining dozen or so half-tribulation immortal realm experts might not be able to rebuild and restore the inheritance of Buddhism for a long time. At the same time, after experiencing the massacre of tens of millions of Buddhist believers, everyone finally saw Yu Haoran's bloodthirstiness and ruthlessness. They all extinguished the idea of finding trouble with him in a short time. Among them were Supreme Blue Dragon, who had successfully advanced to the early stage of the Third Tribulation Immortal Realm, and a dozen old ancestors who had just returned to the Zhongli family. 3 days, 5 days, 10 days. Ever since Yu Haoran left Spirited Mountain with the people from the prince's mansion and returned to the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located, the situation in the entire Tianxian continent suddenly calmed down. The bustling killing in the past seemed to have disappeared into thin air, and the communication between warriors became much more restrained. However, even ordinary people could clearly feel that under the calm and silent situation, a larger scale of turmoil was constantly brewing. Boom! Just as the experts in the Tianxian continent and the endless void were waiting for a larger scale of turmoil to break out, an extremely powerful Qi power suddenly emerged from the prince's mansion after 10 days of peace. Along with the rise of the powerful Qi power, the empty void within 10,000 miles suddenly began to be covered by dark clouds. At the same time, the area where the dark clouds gathered began to rapidly expand from the void above the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located. Soon it covered the entire southern region, the central region, the eastern region, the western region, and finally the northern region completely. Just as the dark clouds completely covered the entire Tianxian continent, a beautiful figure rapidly rushed out of the prince's mansion. Then, with her beautiful hair fluttering in the wind, she held the extinguishing immortal sword in her hand and looked at the dark clouds with a cold expression that was constantly surging with purple lightning. Supreme Thunder Calamity. When they saw Yusiki rushing out of the prince's mansion, the terrifying experts in the 9 forbidden zones, the Supremes, and the half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void all had the same thought in their minds at the same time. That was, among Yu Haoran's close friends, there was finally someone who had relied on step-by-step cultivation to take the final step of martial arts cultivation. Yu Haoran quickly arranged for the protectors. Seeing that the first supreme thunder calamity was about to descend from the dark clouds, Fouling in the sea of consciousness hurriedly reminded him in a hurry. Fouling, don't worry. After experiencing the massacre at Soul Mountain, Yu Haoran knew that before the immeasurable calamity officially began, whether it was the experts in the endless void, the terrifying experts in the forbidden zones, the ancient demon clan, the ancient god clan, or the ancient underworld clan, they would not dare to casually provoke the prince's mansion, nor would they dare to damage or harm Yusiki, who is undergoing the supreme thunder calamity. Otherwise, their fate would be the same as the Buddhist inheritance that was destroyed and the millions of Buddhist followers that were slaughtered. Therefore, when faced with Thaling's reminder, he replied with a smile on his face. Other than the iron rule of the heavenly Tao that must abide by the thunder calamity set by the heavenly Tao, no one in this world would dare to harm my sister. My sister will successfully pass the supreme thunder calamity and become a supreme existence. Although Yu Haoran's reply was full of confidence, he did not dare to be careless. Faling still controlled Mu Beiying's body and left the mansion. Then he called out to Su Hanwan, the Xinyuan beast, and the Xinyuan vessel spirit to guard the 4 directions of the mountain range to prevent anyone from taking the opportunity to damage or harm Yusiki, who was undergoing the tribulation. Yu Haoran did not stop them. Instead, he used a large number of exotic flowers and herbs that he had collected during this period of time to refine level 1 divine pills and level 1 divine pills so that they could help his close friends and family break through to a higher level and become stronger. Perhaps it was because she had a private agreement with Yu Haoran, or perhaps it was because she wanted to accumulate energy to deal with the immeasurable calamity The supreme thunder calamity condensed by the heavenly Tao was not only all purple lightning, but the power of the purple lightning was only a dozen times stronger than the divine tribulation thunder calamity she had encountered before. For Yusiki, whose strength had increased by at least 100 times, the supreme thunder calamity, which was 10 times stronger, was not only no threat, but also no pressure. In the end, she easily passed through the supreme lightning tribulation and became a supreme existence, a supreme expert. Fortunately, although the supreme thunder calamity was not very powerful, the reward after the thunder calamity was hundreds of times stronger than the divine tribulation thunder calamity. Chapter 2093. In a mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, just as Yu Haoran had predicted, from the moment Yusiki began her tribulation until she received the reward of the supreme thunder punishment, she was not attacked at all. Thowing, Su Hanwen, the blood void beast, and Zhang Xianyuan could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. After all, ever since Wu Zhengjun took the lead in breaking through to the martial god realm and attracted the powerful god's tribulation thunder punishment, everyone in the prince's mansion had to face many gods' tribulation thunder punishment. This made Thowing subconsciously think that when Yusiki faced the more powerful supreme thunder punishment, she would also attract all kinds of tribulations. When the last trace of milky white energy from the supreme thunder punishment disappeared, Yusiki, who was slowly opening her eyes, flashed back to the prince's mansion's side courtyard and began to use the divine elixir that Yu Haoran had given her in advance to consolidate her power after breaking through to the next realm. Originally, the experts in the 9 great forbidden lands and the endless void all thought that the supreme thunder punishment had ended. Just as they were about to withdraw their divine sense from the prince consort's residence, an incomparably powerful aura suddenly rose from the residence. At the same time, the dark clouds that had finally dispersed in the mountain range and the void gathered again. The dark clouds covered the entire Tianxian continent. Supreme atavism, long arm rebirth. Just as the second powerful aura emerged from the prince's mansion, in the forbidden land of the endless swamp, Sun Wukong, who shot out 2 rays of golden light from his eyes, looked at the long-armed ape that was dashing out of the prince's mansion quickly. I, the Kongming spirit monkey, will not be alone in my martial journey. I will also have a brother to accompany me. After talking to himself excitedly, Sun Wukong soared to the sky and rushed to the southern region at a speed that was not inferior to tearing through the void. Finally, he landed on the top of the Twin Bull Mountain that bordered the southern region and the central region. After the 2 rays of golden light from his eyes swept across the endless void and the 8 great forbidden lands of the Tianxian continent, Sun Wukong threatened coldly. I don't care if you're a peak 2nd tribulation immortal realm expert or a peak 3rd tribulation immortal realm expert. As long as you dare to disturb my brother, long by divine ape, I'll destroy your body, destroy your divine soul, slaughter your descendants, and destroy your inheritance. Humph! After hearing Sun Wukong's arrogant threat, 5 disdainful sneers came from the depths of the endless void and the endless void. Old crocodile, are you not convinced? The supreme thunder punishment, Saint Expert's 3 tribulation immortal Saint Expert would need, even 3 tribulation immortal Saint Expert. 3 tribulation Saint Expert would take 3 tribulation immortal realm experts to endless immortal realm Saint Expert. Saint Expert. Immortal Saint Expert immortal realm experts would take 3 tribulation. Considering the fact that the long-armed ape needed to be protected and that there were too many terrifying experts and saint-level experts in the endless void, Sun Wukong could only challenge the experts in the White Fog Mountains. That's right. I'm not convinced. Facing Sun Wukong's challenge, a reply came from the White Mist Mountains. If that's the case, then have a taste of my staff. Sun Wukong, who was flying towards the White Mist Mountain range, swung his do-what-I-wish staff, which had turned into a heavenly pillar, and smashed it towards the White Mist Mountain range. Arrogant, with a furious roar, A huge crocodile over 100,000 meters long charged out of the white mist mountains. Early stage, immortal realm, 3 tribulation, immortal realm. Su Hanwen's expression changed slightly when he saw the giant crocodile. He then revealed the crocodile's real cultivation. Thawing, Shue Shu Shue, and Xuanyuan's device spirit also changed their expressions when they heard that the crocodile was a saint expert at early stage, immortal realm, 3 tribulation, immortal realm. They looked at Sun Wukong with worry. After all, if he took the initiative to protect the long-armed ape, it meant that he was on the prince's mansion side. He was their ally. Sun Wukong was only a peak 2 tribulation, immortal realm expert. There is a world of difference between him and a saint expert at early stage, immortal realm, 3 tribulation, immortal realm. However, unlike Thawing and the others who were worried about Sun Wukong's safety, Yu Haoran could not help but frown as he looked at the ashes of the elixir. Of course, the reason he frowned was not because of the failure of the elixir, but because of Sun Wukong's reckless behavior and attitude. After the massacre at Sacred Mountain, before the immeasurable calamity truly began, no one, no matter if it was a terrifying expert at the peak of the immortal realm or a saint at the peak of the immortal realm, would dare to provoke him or anyone from the prince's son-in-law mansion. Yu Siki's successful heavenly tribulation was an obvious example. Therefore, if it were not for Sun Wukong's arrogant provocation, the saint experts in the endless void and white mist mountains would not have paid much attention to him. Furthermore, after Sun Wukong's seemingly righteous and heroic actions, would the long-armed ape, who had successfully passed through the supreme lightning punishment, be moved and choose to leave the prince consort's mansion, just like what I thought? This was the real reason why Yu Haoran was worried and frowning. Boom! Just as the crocodile demonic beast rushed out of the white mist mountains, the my intention stick, which was like a heavenly pillar, heavily hit the crocodile demonic beast's back. Accompanied by a deafening boom, the crocodile demonic beast was unharmed after being hit, but the my intention stick, which was like a heavenly pillar, was bounced away. Awesome! Although Sun Wukong was at a disadvantage in the fight, he was not discouraged at all. Instead, he cheered excitedly and rushed to the crocodile demonic beast's side. He began his best close combat. The crocodile demonic beast's huge body and unaccustomed fighting style caused the crocodile demonic beast to suffer at least 1,000 attacks from Sun Wukong's stick in just 10 seconds. Although the crocodile demonic beast relied on the physical body of a saint expert, the 1,000 attacks did not cause it any harm. However, the physical pain and the fact that it seemed to be at a disadvantage made the crocodile demonic beast feel embarrassed. After roaring angrily, it used its strong tail and rich immortal aura to force Sun Wukong to retreat. After that, the crocodile demonic beast let out a roar that resounded through the clouds. The entire mountain range was instantly covered in white mist. Following that, the crocodile demonic beast's huge body instantly melted into the mist, making it impossible to find its trace. Bang! Boom! Dong! Puffed! In less than 1/10 of a second, the sound of sneak attacks, fighting, counterattacks, and injuries spitting out blood could be heard from the white mist. Although it's talented, it's limited by its cultivation. Defeat and injuries are inevitable. Chapter 2094. Above the white fog mountains. Sun Wukong's 10 attacks might not even hit the crocodile demonic beast once. And every time the crocodile demonic beast attacked, it would accurately hit Sun Wukong's vital points. He already knew the final result of the battle. Yu Haoran raised his head and looked at the long-armed ape that was resisting the supreme lightning punishment. A hint of hesitation flashed across his eyes. However, after recalling the bits and pieces of interaction he had with the long-armed ape, the hesitation in his eyes was finally replaced by determination. Then he got up and left the prince's mansion, then walked to the edge of the white fog mountains. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran cupped his hands and requested the crocodile demonic beast in the white fog. "Senior, can you do me a favor and let Senior Sun Wukong live for the time being?" After hearing Yu Haoran's request, the crocodile demonic beast in the white fog did not reply immediately, but it took the initiative to stop its sneak attacks on Sun Wukong. However, the overly arrogant Sun Wukong did not appreciate it at all and reprimanded it. Kid, get lost immediately. Sun Wukong, don't need a junior like you to meddle in other people's business. After hearing Sun Wukong's reprimand, Yu Haoran's expression did not change at all as he bade farewell to the crocodile demonic beast in the white fog. Senior, sorry to disturb you. I'll take my leave first. Then, with the help of the space rules, he crossed the central region in 1 step and returned to the prince's mansion in 2 steps. Please, after reprimanding him, he turned and left directly. Yu Haoran's actions just now, let alone the crocodile and Sun Wukong. Even the tower spirit, who was most familiar with Yu Haoran, did not understand why he had done so. After returning to the courtyard of the mansion, Yu Haoran sat back in the pill refining position and looked up at the long-armed ape, who was about to go through the supreme thunder punishment. He then lowered his head and continued to refine the divine pills that everyone in the mansion needed. After successfully going through the 9th stage supreme thunder tribulation, the long-armed ape looked down at Yu Haoran, who was refining pills in the mansion, and then at Sun Wukong, who was trapped in the white fog. He could not help but sigh softly. Everyone present did not know the meaning of Yu Haoran's actions just now, but the long-armed ape, who had successfully completed the final bloodline ancestral awakening and inherited all the memories of his ancestors, could guess it. He asked the crocodile demonic beast for Sun Wukong temporarily. He was to repay him for Sun Wukong's kindness for warning him in advance when he was going through the divine tribulation. In a situation where there was no debt of gratitude between them, he had no qualms about choosing the person he would follow in the future. Wukong closed his eyes, slowly. Long-armed apes slowly. Close Wukong, close his eyes, slowly. He closed sky, slowly. 5 seconds later, the long-armed ape opened his eyes again. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the white mist that trapped Sun Wukong as he softly shouted, "Pom-pom, whirl pom." Along with long-armed ape's shout, a rotating force appeared out of nowhere from his palm and began to forcefully separate the white fog. At the same time, Sun Wukong, who was trapped in the fog, also used the powerful strength he gained from overdrawing his bloodline to cooperate with long-armed ape. Long-armed ape, you're courting death. After the white fog was forcefully separated, the crocodile demonic beast was unable to continue its sneak attack. In the end, it was forced to retract the white fog. Ignoring the angry curses of the crocodile demonic beast, long-armed ape said to Sun Wukong, who was covered in blood and in a sorry state, "Big brother, let's go back." Bang! Hearing long-armed ape's reply to Sun Wukong, Yu Haoran's body trembled slightly, and the divine pill that had just formed in his hand directly shattered. He did not care about this at all and raised his head to look at long-armed ape, who was sitting cross-legged above the mansion, with a gratified and happy expression in his eyes. "Third brother, what did you say?" Sun Wukong, who suspected that he had heard wrongly, suddenly raised his head and shouted, "Big brother, return to your death swamp and wait for the immeasurable calamity to begin." Facing Sun Wukong's question, long-armed ape gave him a difficult choice. "When the time comes, I will ask Yu Haoran to use the law of destiny that he controls to try his best to protect you through the calamity of heaven and earth's destruction, so that you can break through to the immortal realm in the new era." "I don't need it." Long-armed ape gave the reason for his final choice, completely igniting the tyranny that Sun Wukong had suppressed for countless years. He soared into the sky and waved the "What I Wish" stick, directly smashing it towards the prince's mansion and Yu Haoran, who was in the mansion. "I'll do it." Although the instant exchange of the relationship between friend and foe was unexpected by Thaling and the others, Su Hanwen, who was facing the murderous Sun Wukong, and the "What I Wish" stick that was smashing towards him like a heavenly pillar, rose into the sky and signaled him to deal with the "What I Wish" stick. However, Before Su Hanwen could wave the willow branch in his hand, a finger quickly stretched out from the mansion and pressed against the body of the What I Wish stick. When he saw that the owner of the finger was Yu Haoran, and when he saw that Yu Haoran had used his divine power and soul power to form a finger, he was surprised that he was able to block the attack of the stick as I wish. At this moment, not only were the terrifying and saint experts in the 8 great forbidden lands and the endless void in disbelief, even Su Hanwen and Thaling, who truly understood Yu Haoran's strength, were also in disbelief. As Sun Wukong's natal ritual implement, the What I Wish stick that had been restored to its peak state had already surpassed the level of a supreme ritual implement. At the same time, with the full support of Sun Wukong, a terrifying expert at the peak of a mortal realm, the power of the What I Wish stick's attack was infinitely close to that of a third tribulation immortal realm expert. Yu Haoran was able to block the attack of the What I Wish stick with his finger condensed by divine power and soul power. Could it be that in just 10 days of closed-door cultivation, he already possessed the saint power of the immortal realm? Yu Haoran, who had blocked the What Is My Intention staff, suddenly pressed down hard with his finger. As he easily sent the What Is My Intention staff flying, he ordered with a complicated expression. As a matter of fact, the fact that he could use his finger condensed with 30% of his godly power and soul power to easily block and repel the attack of My Will Cudgel, which had reached the peak of the second tribulation of the immortal realm, was not because he had cultivated in seclusion for 10 days. Instead, it was because he had secretly used the power of the karma laws in the finger he had condensed just now. He had used the karma that had helped the As I Will staff break free and easily repelled it. And the influence of this kind of cause and effect was enough to surpass the power of any realm and rule bending power. Although Sun Wukong did not know what kind of power Yu Haoran had used to send the as wishful staff flying, he was able to guess that Yu Haoran had a way to destroy him based on the fact that his weapon's attack power was instantly restricted. Chapter 2095. Inside the prince's mansion. Senior son, you should leave as well. After dispersing the finger formed by God power, soul power, and the law of karma, Yu Haoran glanced at Sun Wukong, who had landed on the Twin Ox Mountain. Release my third brother immediately. Otherwise, no one in your prince's mansion will be able to leave the southern mountain range easily. Facing Yu Haoran's cold command, Sun Wukong threatened with a murderous aura. Regardless of whether it was the warning from the terrifying experts in the sea region or the face of a long-armed ape, Yu Haoran didn't want to make things too awkward with Sun Wukong. Therefore, he tried his best to suppress the raging anger in his heart and tried his best to maintain a calm tone as he questioned. Senior son, my prince's mansion has never imprisoned or restricted senior long-armed ape. Whether he stays or leaves is entirely up to his own will. Senior son is using this reason to threaten me, Yu Haoran, and everyone in my prince's mansion. Isn't this a little too much? Old son, I don't care about this. Today, I must take my third brother away. Otherwise, I swear on my martial arts and my inner demons that I guarantee that everyone in your prince's mansion can only stay in the southern mountain range forever. Facing Yu Haoran's questioning, Sun Wukong didn't have any reason or confidence to refute. Therefore, he could only use shameless means to continue threatening. Sun Wukong's threats that didn't know when to back down completely ignited Yu Haoran's suppressed anger. At the same time, it also completely ignited the strong, murderous intent in his heart. After leaving the mansion, he directly locked on his son Wukong with his divine sense and threatened him. You with the surname Sun, you have bullied me time and time again. Do you really think that I don't dare to kill you? Although the divine sense that locked onto him was only at the peak of 9th grade sovereign, Sun Wukong immediately took a step back nervously when he thought of how Yu Haoran easily defeated a wishful mind cudgel just now. Moreover, there was a trace of hesitation in his eyes. Big brother, don't let your stubbornness cause us brothers to turn against each other. Sun Wukong threatened Yu Haoran again and again. The long-armed ape saw this and felt anxious in his heart. However, The milky white energy rewarded by the supreme thunder punishment made it so that he was at the crucial moment of his breakthrough. He simply couldn't spare any energy to persuade Sun Wukong. Therefore, it was only when Yuhaoran was about to attack in rage that long-armed ape, who had finally broken through to the initial stage of a fifth-grade supreme martial artist, was finally able to spare some energy to reprimand him. Of course, although he seemed to be scolding fiercely, he was actually protecting Sun Wukong. After all, as the elder closest to him, he didn't know how many trump cards Yuhaoran had that could turn the situation around and whether he had the means to kill Sun Wukong. Third brother, in ancient times, when the four of us joined hands, even the 9 godly beast kings of the ancient demon clan, and the godly emperor of the ancient demon clan, and the godly emperor of the ancient demon clan didn't dare to provoke us. Don't you want to recreate the glory of that time? They turned against each other. After hearing long-armed ape's threat, Goku immediately reminded him. Impressive. Glorious. After hearing Goku's reminder, long-armed ape repeated it with a complicated expression. His eyes revealed a trace of sadness as he questioned. Big brother, so what if we were impressive? So what if we were glorious? What happened to us in the end? You, who had the talent of knowing the right time and the right place, used the means that you prepared beforehand to avoid the conspiracy that targeted us during the ancient continent's destruction. But what about us 3 brothers? Faced with long-armed ape's questioning, a trace of guilt flashed across Goku's eyes. This was because when he sensed the fatal danger of the ancient continent's destruction, he didn't inform the other 3 brothers in advance so that they could prepare defensive and life-saving measures in advance. Second brother's soul was forcefully wiped out by the emperor of the underworld of the ancient underworld clan. Fourth brother was forcefully devoured by the demon emperor of the ancient demon clan. This caused them to not even have the chance to leave behind a trace of bloodline inheritance. They completely lost the opportunity to borrow the power of their bloodline to be reborn. If not for second brother and fourth brother sacrificing themselves to save others, allowing me to use the means of my bloodline talent to leave behind a drop of origin blood essence in advance, I'm afraid that there wouldn't be a long-armed ape who could return to his roots today. Speaking until here, long-armed ape suddenly stood up and shouted, Big brother, if you lose your life, the bloodline inheritance is broken, and the opportunity to be reborn is gone. Then what's the use of being impressive and glorious? Faced with long-armed ape's continuous questioning, the conviction that he had been holding on to all this time collapsed instantly. At the same time, Goku's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. At the same time, he also took 9 steps back and looked at long-armed ape with a perplexed expression in his eyes. Regardless of whether he stood up angrily or shouted emotionally, it would affect the opportunity that long-armed ape was currently facing. Therefore, Yuhaoran flashed in front of him and reminded him in a gentle tone, Calm your chi and focus your mind. Don't say too much and don't think too much. Continue to use the pure energy of the supreme thunder punishment reward to break through to a higher realm. Thank you. Yuhaoran's timely reminder caused long-armed ape to quickly wake up from his anger. Then, he took a deep breath and forcefully calmed his agitated emotions. After thanking Yuhaoran, he sat cross-legged in the void again and continued to absorb the remaining milky white energy. To be able to instantly calm his anger and enter a state of cultivation, Yuhaoran nodded his head in satisfaction at long-armed ape's increasingly calm performance. Then, he turned around and looked at Goku. He realized that Goku, who was in a daze, had actually entered a very strange state. This strange state was similar to an epiphany, but it also seemed like a precursor to chi deviation. The power of the space rules allowed him to instantly appear in front of Goku. Using the trace of strange aura that his divine thought had gathered, he made a deduction through the power of the karma rules. Finally, he understood what this strange state was all about. The impact of self-blame and regret caused the state of mind to backfire. And finally, the heart demon's heart exploded. However, the state of Buddhist cultivation allowed him to enter a state of epiphany because of the heart demon's fire. If Goku could successfully get rid of the influence of self-blame and regret, and completely eliminate the heart demon's fire, then he could use the state of epiphany to advance to the immortal three tribulations realm and become a saint expert at the pinnacle of the martial arts realm. If he could not get rid of the influence of self-blame and regret, then the heart demon's fire that was burning stronger and stronger would eventually expel the state of epiphany, and then his body and soul would be completely burned. Looking at Goku, who had his eyes closed and was defenseless, a trace of murderous intent and hesitation flashed in Yuharen's eyes. If Goku successfully defeated the heart demon and became a saint expert at the immortal three tribulations realm, then with his violent and bloodthirsty character and the grudge that they had just formed, he would be a very difficult problem to deal with for a short period of time to everyone in the prince's mansion. Chapter 2096. Inside the prince's mansion. After thinking for a while, Yuharen could not help but sigh softly. In the end, he put away the murderous intent in his eyes and turned around to return to the prince's mansion. If Sun Wukong continued to be an enemy of the prince's mansion after becoming a triple tribulation immortal saint expert, it would not be entirely a bad thing for everyone in the prince's mansion. Whether it was himself or his close friends, the reason why they could grow from little cultivators who had just started cultivating to gods and supreme existences in just a few years was because of external pressure and oppression, which played a key role in increasing their potential. If Sun Wukong, a ferocious and brutal saint expert, along with the fatal threat he brought, perhaps Yusiki would be able to reach the half-tribulation immortal realm faster, and Wu Jingjun, Lu Yuan, and the others would be able to reach the supreme being realm faster. Lan Rong. After returning to the prince's mansion, Yuharen immediately ordered Lan Rong, who was constantly increasing his accumulation and preparing to reach the martial god realm in a short period of time. Lan Rong immediately stopped cultivating and stood up, kneeling on one knee as he obeyed the order. Your subordinate obeys the order. Select 100 elite soldiers of Emperor Wu, 1,000 martial venerables, and 10,000 martial saints to guard Twin Bull Mountain until Sun Wukong ends his state of enlightenment. Your subordinate obeys the order. After acknowledging the order, Lan Rong immediately picked out 11,100 elite soldiers from the son-in-law's residence, then soared into the air and headed for Twin Ox City. Seeing what Yuharen did to Sun Wukong, many experts in the Tianxian continent and the Endless Void suddenly had strange and doubtful thoughts in their hearts. Strange that Yuharen, who always sought revenge for the smallest grievance, would take the initiative to let Sun Wukong go. Strange that the narrow-minded Yuharen would take the initiative to send his subordinates to protect Sun Wukong and help him reach a higher realm. Yuharen didn't care about other people's opinions and thoughts. Sitting cross-legged, he returned to his original spot and continued to refine the medicinal pills that could help everyone in the prince's mansion improve their cultivation and strength. After absorbing the last strand of milky white energy, the long-armed ape, whose cultivation had reached the peak of 5th-grade supreme martial artist, raised his head and looked at the more than 10,000 elite soldiers guarding around Sun Wukong on the northern road. A look of gratitude flashed across his eyes. Then, he quickly returned to the courtyard of the mansion. Just like Yusiki, he seized the time to consolidate his realm and prepare for the upcoming battle. According to the performance of the battle at Spirited Mountain, the only people in the prince's mansion who had the potential to break through to the supreme realm were Long-Armed Ape, Yusiki, and Yuharen. Now, Long-Armed Ape and Yusiki had successfully passed through the supreme lightning punishment. Then, it was Yuharen's turn. Therefore, the experts in the 8 great forbidden lands and the endless void didn't immediately retract their divine thoughts. They were still waiting for Yuharen to rush out of the mansion and activate his powerful aura to attract the supreme lightning punishment. Some of the saint experts who had undergone 3 tribulations of the immortal realm were even considering if they should take this opportunity to get rid of Yuharen. However, it was a pity. Yuharen didn't rush out of the mansion and activate his powerful aura. Instead, he took the initiative to return to the courtyard and activate the mansion's defensive formation. At this moment, many experts knew that Yu Haoran wouldn't break through to the supreme realm in a short period of time. As the prince's mansion regained its peace, the entire Tianxian continent continued to fall into a stifling and peaceful wait. However, in this stifling and peaceful wait, very few people noticed the movements of Emperor Qin, who was conquering the central region and the tens of millions of troops. Compared to the top experts and forces who were trying their best to restrain the outbreak of conflicts, Emperor Qin and the tens of millions of troops were everywhere. They purposely chose cities that didn't have martial gods or supreme experts or some small families and sects that hadn't been around for a long time to completely wipe them out. In less than half a month, the territories that Emperor Qin and the tens of millions of troops conquered almost covered 1/3 of the central region's territory, which was equivalent to half of the southern region. At the same time, the number of creatures that died in their hands was far more than 20 million. If it weren't for the fate energy from the deaths of more than 20 million creatures that caused the Destiny Stone Tablet to change, it wouldn't have startled the Destiny Calamity spiritual rat that was trying to break through to the half-tribulation of the immortal realm. After using the law of cause and effect to forcefully suppress the changes of the Destiny Stone Tablet and prevent the immeasurable calamity from starting in advance, Yu Haoran rushed out of the prince's mansion with a gloomy face. After that, his peak 9th grade supreme divine thought swept across the entire southern region and the central region. Finally, he found the reason for the changes of the Destiny Stone Tablet in more than 10 cities in the South Mountain County of the central region and the Bloodbone Mountain Range. It was the massacre that Emperor Qin and the Northern Expedition Army left no survivors. After the intense killing intent in his eyes was replaced by doubt, Yu Haoran used his divine thought to call out to Su Hanwan and the Blood Void Beast. Then, he tore through the void and rushed to the Bloodbone Mountain Range. At the same time, he was trying to figure out the reason for Emperor Qin's actions. With the ability of the Emperor Qin's kingdom to collect information and the information that he entrusted to Meng Zhengkai, Emperor Qin should be aware of the situation in the Tianxian continent. He should be aware that there was no point in fighting and killing at this time. Attacking cities and territories was just a flash in the pan. Moreover, Emperor Qin was one of the few wise monarchs in the world. In the decades that he led the great Emperor Qin's kingdom, he had launched hundreds of battles. However, he had never done something as cruel as Tu Qi and the Tu clan. In that case, why had he become so impulsive and bloodthirsty? Could it be because he was cultivating the Heart Demon Supreme, Yuluran's cultivation technique? Thinking of this, Yu Haoran's expression changed slightly. He immediately mobilized the law of space and arrived at the Bloodbone Mountain Range at the border of the Central Region and the North Region. This is the heaven-defying spirit-seizing formation. Just as Yu Haoran arrived at the border of the Bloodbone Mountain Range, a gust of cold wind that made his soul tremble blew past. Thaling, who was in his knowledge sea, had a look of confusion and recollection in his eyes. The recollection was very short. Yu Haoran had just stabilized his body and was about to use his consciousness to scan the entire Bloodbone Mountain Range when he couldn't help but cry out involuntarily. Not good. Hearing Thaling's cry of the heaven-defying spirit seizing formation, Yu Haoran's mind immediately flashed with the records of this formation in the Destiny Stone Tablet. At the same time, his expression changed, and he rushed directly into the Bloodbone Mountain Range. This was because the heaven-defying spirit-seizing formation was also known as the perfect body seizing formation. It was a heaven-defying formation that could allow the soul of a martial god to successfully seize the body of another person and obtain a new life. With Emperor Qin's indecisive personality, it was impossible for him to do something as cruel as massacring an entire city. Therefore, the deaths of millions of lives in the central region must have been caused by the Heart Demon Supreme, Yuluoran. Chapter 2097. In the Bloodbone Mountain Range. The Bloodbone Mountain Range was located at the border between the East Region and the Central Region. It was made up of 18 mountains of different heights. It was considered a small mountain range. The Bloodbone Mountain Range's name referred to the plants in the mountain range. Not only were they blood red in color, but their shapes were also 90% similar to human bones. At the peak of the 9th mountain in the Bloodbone Mountain Range, a huge pool was dug out, and the pool was filled with blood that emitted a fishy smell. In the middle of the pool, Emperor Qin's entire body was submerged in the blood pool. Only his head was floating above the blood pool. However, compared to the Qin Emperor's temperament in the past, the Qin Emperor now gave off a feminine and strange feeling, as if he was both real and fake. When Yu Haoran appeared at the edge of the Bloodbone Mountain Range, Emperor Qin, who was submerged in the blood pool, suddenly opened his eyes. He frowned and muttered to himself, "In order to set up the soul-seizing formation successfully, not only did I choose to use the 10 sides blossom method, but I also didn't leave anyone alive. How did Yu Haoran find out beforehand? No. With Su Hanwen, an early-stage 3 Tribulation Immortal Saint expert, the method I set up beforehand definitely won't work. Looks like I can only take Emperor Qin's body first and find a way to recover my half-tribulation immortal realm strength in the future." However, when Emperor Qin was about to leave the blood pool and retreat to the Bloodbone Mountain Range in advance, he was surprised to see Yu Haoran rushing into the Bloodbone Mountain Range alone. He didn't even wait for Su Hanwen and the Blood Beast Void, who were thousands of miles away. Emperor Qin relaxed his eyebrows and murmured to himself with surprise in his eyes. "There's a saying that goes, there's a path to heaven, but you don't take it. Looks like the perfect 9 beauties killing formation that I set up beforehand can finally be put to use." After muttering to himself excitedly, the Qin Emperor's body slowly floated out of the blood pool. Then his 10 fingers quickly formed seals and merged the seals into the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th mountain peaks through the air. Emperor Qin muttered to himself with a smug look on his face after the last mark merged with the 9th mountain. "Yu Haoran, enjoy the strongest illusion formation I've prepared for you. When I, Heart Demon Supreme Yu Haoran, completely possess Emperor Qin's body and return to my previous life's half-tribulation immortal realm, I'll also strip you of your identity as the Son of Destiny and take your Destiny Tablet and Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat. At that time, I, Yu Luoran, will also be able to use the tablet to seize the opportunity in immeasurable tribulation and break through to the immortal realm, becoming the only existence in the world that can surpass the heavenly Tao." After muttering to herself excitedly and proudly, Yu Luoran controlled Emperor Qin's body to enter the blood pool again. Not long after Yu Haoran charged into the Bloodbone Mountain Range, he noticed that the mountain before him was replaced by a beautiful courtyard. In the courtyard, the 2nd floor of the pavilion was built with bamboo, giving people a sense of leisure and ease. Beside the courtyard, the bamboo forest fluttered with the wind, letting out a pleasant sound. He did not feel the slightest bit of panic in his heart because of the sudden change in the environment in front of him, nor did he feel the slightest bit relaxed because of the beautiful natural environment. Yu Haoran reached out and pushed open the bamboo-woven courtyard door, then stepped into the courtyard. "Husband, you're back." Just as he stepped into the courtyard, he suddenly heard a pleasant voice that could completely relax him. Along with the pleasant voice, a woman in a long dress who didn't look very outstanding but had a gentle temperament walked down slowly from the 2nd floor of the pavilion. "Yes, I'm back." Jiang Feng, he didn't immediately attack the woman because of the illusion in front of him. He also didn't use his powerful strength to destroy the courtyard and pavilion in front of him. He tried to integrate himself into the identity given by the illusion to see the power of Heart Demon Supreme Yu Luoran's illusion. "Husband, please rest for a while. I'll cook some food and wine for you now." After taking the initiative to take off Yu Haoran's clothes, the woman in the long dress said in a very docile manner. Then, she turned around and went to the side room on the west side of the courtyard. Of course, the side room was also built with bamboo. Ignoring the virtuous woman in the long dress, Jiang Feng, he pushed open the bamboo door and entered the living room on the 1st floor. He raised his head and looked at the painting hanging in the main hall of the living room. It was a painting of his teacher, Feng Qingyan. A terrifying cold light flashed in his eyes. Then, he turned around and walked to the stairs that led to the second floor. Using the bamboo stairs, he entered the second floor of the pavilion. The layout of the second floor was simple and orderly. On the east side, there was an independent study separated by 18 bamboo pillars that were as thick as an arm. On the west side, there was a double bed made of green bamboo for cushions for sitting on the ground and a small study table for drinking tea. Walking to the study on the east side, Yu Haoran sat on a bamboo recliner and picked up a book on the 100 Seedlings. As a direct descendant of a clan, before he started cultivating martial arts at the age of 16, he had to study the 4 books and 5 classics, the Analects of Confucius, the 100 Seedlings, and other works of Confucianism. Not only could he increase his knowledge, but he could also prevent himself from taking the imperial examinations if his martial arts talent was not strong enough. When Yu Haoran looked at the contents of the 100 Seedlings' miscellaneous talk in his hand, and realized that it was exactly the same as the 100 Seedlings' miscellaneous talk he had learned in his clan, he immediately lost interest and tossed it aside. Then, he got up and left the study. Then he walked to the window on the second floor and looked at the bamboo forest beside the courtyard with a trace of doubt in his eyes. The changes in the environment of the Bloodbone Mountain Range were definitely due to the illusion of the Heart Demon Supreme, Yu Luoran. However, the ultimate goal of the illusion was to confuse, kill, capture, or trap the opponent. At this moment, the exquisite pavilion in front of him, the bamboo forest that swayed with the wind, and the docile woman in the long dress did not have the ability to kill or capture him. At this moment, he was confident that he could easily escape from this predicament and return to the Bloodbone Mountain Range in reality. "Husband, the dishes are ready, and the wine is warm. Come down and have your meal." Just as Yu Haoran was wondering why the Heart Demon Supreme, Yu Luoran, had set up the formation, the voice of the woman in the long dress suddenly rang in his ears. After taking a deep breath and forcefully suppressing the urge to escape from the illusion, he turned around and left the windowsill. Then, he walked down the stairs and returned to the dining room on the west side of the first floor. Looking at the 4 exquisite side dishes on the table and a pot of wine steeped in warm water, he felt as relaxed as if he was picking chrysanthemums under the eastern fence and leisurely looking at the southern mountain. A faint smile appeared on his face as he walked to the dining table. "Husband, please have your meal." The woman in the long dress knelt before the table and gestured respectfully. "Get up." After Yu Haoran instructed calmly, he sat on the chair on the east side and picked up his chopsticks to taste the exquisite side dishes. Chapter 2098. In the Bloodbone Mountain Range. While Yu Haoran was enjoying the delicacies and wine, Thaling and his 2 avatars in the knowledge sea looked at the soul with its eyes closed and gradually emitting a comfortable and lost aura. Their faces gradually turned gloomy. After giving up on using his mind to sense the main body, the second avatar turned to Thaling and asked for help. "Old Thaling, do you have a way to awaken the main body's consciousness?" Sigh. In response to the second avatar's request for help, Thaling sighed and shook his head. Inner demon Sovereign Yu Luoran's illusion can directly awaken the human weakness that you normally wouldn't notice at all. It can make you unknowingly fall into the illusion's trap. At the same time, the moment you fall into the trap, your subconscious will instinctively reject any help that wants to awaken you or help you escape from the illusion. Therefore, if Yu Haoran wants to escape from the illusion set up by inner demon Sovereign Yu Luoran, he can only rely on himself to walk out of the illusion. You and I can't help him. Emperor Qin has fallen. Just as the first avatar was planning to use the 6 paths of reincarnation to try and see if he could help the main body escape from the illusion, a familiar soul fluctuation made him use the 18 layers of hell to forcefully intercept a trace of soul fluctuation. Finally, he was able to determine the origin and state of the familiar soul fluctuation. That was Emperor Qin's soul that had been forcefully expelled from the knowledge sea by inner demon Sovereign Yu Luoran. A soul that had lost its soul was like water that had been poured out. It was already considered completely dead. After hearing the news of Emperor Qin's fall, Thaling's body trembled slightly. His gaze towards Yu Haoran revealed an incomparably worried expression. Since Yu Haoran's rebirth, Thaling had always been by his side, so he was very clear about how deep his feelings for Feng Qingyun and Emperor Qin were. Feng Qingyun's death made Yu Haoran disregard the difference in strength between them. He led the people of the prince's mansion to Spirited Mountain. Not only did he destroy Buddhism's countless years of inheritance, but he also personally slaughtered tens of millions of Buddhist followers. Now, with the fall of Emperor Qin, what kind of crazy things would Yu Haoran do? Although the ingredients of the dish were very ordinary, the most common bamboo shoots, wild vegetables, and eggs, under the exquisite cooking skills of the woman in the long dress, they became a rare delicacy in the world. As a result, Yu Haoran, who hadn't really enjoyed worldly delicacies for many years, swept away the beautiful leaves on the table like a whirlwind. "Husband, rest," the woman in the long dress, who had just finished her meal, said with a flirtatious look on her face. Whether it was appearance, figure, skin color, or temperament, the woman in the long dress in front of him, who was meticulously served, was completely different from Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace. But in the face of her charming and delicate aura, Yu Haoran suddenly had an impulse to be warm and tender. "Clean up quickly and go to the second floor." Under the influence of the primitive impulse in his heart, Yu Haoran stood up and walked to the stairs of the second floor with a hint of desire in his eyes. "Husband, don't go upstairs for now. I'll go wash up and dress up first." The woman in the long dress, whose face was as red as an apple, immediately lowered her head and ran out of the attic. Then, she went straight to the east wing to wash up and dress up. Standing quietly on the second floor, Yu Haoran's eyes revealed a hint of desire as he looked at the bamboo forest fluttering in the wind. He murmured to himself, "There's still half a year before the court examination. I don't know if I can successfully enter the imperial list this time, then bring glory to my family and establish my own clan. Husband, let's rest." Just as Yu Haoran's mind was filled with absurd thoughts that he shouldn't have, a delicate and charming voice sounded out in his ears. He turned his head and found that the woman in the long dress not only looked more beautiful after freshening up, but the tender affection between her eyes made it difficult for him to control the most primitive thoughts in his heart. He walked up to the woman in the long dress in a few steps. Just as his hands were about to touch her dress, he suddenly felt panic and heartache, and he couldn't help but bend down. What happened? Yu Haoran asked himself with a confused look in his eyes as he clutched his aching chest. Why do I feel panic and heartache? Did I just lose something very important? Husband, are you all right? The woman in the long dress asked with concern as she bent down to help him up. Husband, wife Ling Fei. As the woman in the long dress called him husband, the confusion in Yu Haoran's eyes gradually became clear. Ling Fei, Prince Consort, His Majesty. When the confusion in his eyes was completely replaced by clarity, a terrifying aura directly shattered the woman in the long dress, shattered the bamboo pavilion, and shattered the safe space created by the illusion. Yu Haoran, you're finally awake. Just as the soul in the consciousness space suddenly exploded with a terrifying aura, Thaling and the two doppelgangers knew that he had successfully escaped from the illusion. Thus, Thaling and the second doppelganger immediately contacted Yu Haoran's consciousness, while the first doppelganger directly returned to Victor Space to continue refining the 6 paths of reincarnation and the 18 layers of hell. The moment he opened his eyes, Yu Haoran said to Thaling with a sorrowful expression, "His Majesty has passed away." Thaling and the second doppelganger, who already knew about Emperor Qin's death from the first doppelganger, could only sigh slightly and say nothing. Heart Demon Supreme Yuluoran, who was recovering her half-tribulation immortal realm with the help of the blood pool, was surprised when she felt that Yu Haoran could escape from the illusion of the first mountain in such a short time. But then, her surprise was replaced by a strong, killing intent. Emperor Qin sneered and said to himself, The first mountain peak's heart of ease is only the weakest illusion among the 9 beauties illusion formations. The following dynasty struggle, Jianghu unification, and everlasting fall are the real killing moves. I hope you Haoran, can come out alive. Haoran, I'm sorry for your loss. Faling was afraid that Haoran's aura and killing intent were getting stronger and stronger, so she hurriedly comforted him in a soft voice. Phew! The Tower Genie's consolation caused Haoran to gradually wake up from his anger and sorrow. After withdrawing his terrifying killing intent, he raised his head to look at the peak of the 9th mountain. His eyes shone with a terrifying cold light. Sensing the terrifying coldness in Haoran's eyes, the first doppelganger quickly suggested, "Brother should we find a way to bring Senior Su to our side?" When Haoran was trapped in the illusion formation of the first mountain, Su Hanwen and the Blood Void Beast, who came after him, couldn't get close to the first mountain no matter what they did. That was why he was trapped in the illusion. Chapter 2099. In the Bloodbone Mountain Range. No need. In response to his first clone suggestion, Haoran turned to look at Su Hanwen and the Blood Void Beast, who were standing at the edge of the Bloodbone Mountain Range and trying to find a way to approach the first mountain. He shook his head and rejected the suggestion. At the same time, he also used his space rules of law to wrap his divine consciousness and instructed them to wait at the edge of the mountain range for the time being. Then, he flew over the second mountain and went straight to the third mountain with the illusory formation. Haoran, what are you trying to do? Faling asked nervously when he saw Haoran's target was the third mountain with the strongest illusory formation. After all, Haoran was able to break free from the illusory formation of the first mountain because of the telepathy caused by Emperor Qin's fall. Faling, since His Majesty has left, it doesn't matter if I kill Heart Demon Supreme Luoran earlier or later. Haoran didn't stop approaching the third mountain as he replied to the Tower Genie's question. Why don't I take this opportunity to experience the power of the strongest illusory formation in the Middle Ages? Why? Faling asked in confusion. If it was said that Haoran's respect for Feng Qingyun came mostly from his previous life's psychological guilt and longing. However, his respect for Emperor Qin came from Emperor Qin's high regard and care for him, as well as the relationship between father-in-law and son-in-law. Just to see the illusory formation set up by Heart Demon Supreme Luoran, he delayed the time for Emperor Qin to take revenge. This was not in line with his narrow-minded character and his habit of seeking revenge for the smallest grievance. Haoran stopped abruptly when he was about to step on the third mountain. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and madness. Faling, as His Majesty's most valued son-in-law and Ling Fei's husband, I, Haoran, have the duty and responsibility to take revenge for His Majesty. But now, even if I overdraft all my potential, godly power and soul power, I can only reach the peak of the immortal realm at most. As for Heart Demon Supreme Luoran, who has successfully possessed her body, she will soon recover her power and strength at the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm. I am no match for her. Therefore, I can only take the risk to improve the cultivation of my mental state through the experience of the illusion realm and strengthen the accumulation of my potential. I can use this to directly break through to the supreme realm, because only then can I possess the strength to kill the sovereign of the inner demon, Luoran. Only then can I personally avenge His Majesty. Only then can I have the courage to return and face Ling Fei. After hearing Haoran's explanation that was filled with unwillingness and madness, Faling sighed and didn't know what to say. This was because Haoran's persistence and risk were not wrong. This was also the belief that a junior and expert should have. Haoran took a deep breath and calmed the emotions that rose and fell like tempestuous waves in his heart, and then he stepped onto the third mountain. Long live His Majesty! Long live His Majesty! Just as his feet stepped onto the hard ground of the third mountain peak, the environment in front of him was instantly replaced by a magnificent and majestic palace. On both sides of the palace, there were thousands of imperial guards in armor. Inside the palace, the civil and military officials were kneeling with a solemn expression. After learning the lesson of enjoying the illusion realm on the first mountain peak, although Yuhaoran had immersed himself in a new role, he had used the karma law to set up a method to break the illusion realm in advance. This was the only flaw of the illusion realm created by Heart Demon Supreme Yuluoran. It was also where Yuhaoran's confidence in taking the risk to break through the illusion realm came from. My beloved subjects, you may rise. He walked to the majestic and luxurious dragon throne. As he turned around and sat on the dragon throne, he gestured with a calm expression. Thank you for your grace, His Majesty. More than 100 civil and military officials replied respectfully and stood up. Next, the civil and military officials began to fiercely debate over whether or not to continue the war of expansion. The conservative civil officials believed that Emperor Qin's kingdom of Qin was large enough and needed to rest and build up its economy, increasing the strength of the nation and its people. The radical military officials believed that Emperor Qin's kingdom of Qin was strong and prosperous, and that it was the best time to expand and establish a foundation. Although he had never been the ruler of a nation and had never interacted with the civil and military officials, the judgment brought about by his immersion in the role allowed him to understand what the civil and military officials were arguing about, or rather, fighting over benefits. If they wanted to rest and build up strength, they needed the civil officials' way of governing. If they wanted to expand, they needed the military officials' way of conquering. If the military officials had the upper hand, then the civil officials' authority and promotion would far surpass that of the military officials. If the military officials had the upper hand, then the military officials' authority and promotion would completely suppress the civil officials. After arguing for more than 2 hours, with no one able to suppress the other, the civil and military officials could only hand over the final decision to His Majesty, the role Yuhaoran was currently immersed in. Fight! Yuhaoran decisively declared his decision after sweeping his gaze over the officials in the hall. Whether it was in chaotic times of war or prosperous times of song and dance, a vigorous army would always be the foundation of a nation's prosperity. How could an army maintain its vigorous fighting power? Normal training was only the foundation. Only by constantly experiencing the trials of blood and fire, and only by fighting with stronger opponents, could an army maintain its vigorous condition and continue to increase its fighting power. Thus, whenever a dynasty was on the verge of collapse, those with insight would come to the conclusion that the civil officials were a disaster for the nation. The several dozen military officials who had received the imperial decree immediately gathered the empire's millions of soldiers and began to expand their territory. On the city walls, Yuhaoran inwardly sneered as he looked at the 100 civil officials who still wanted to collectively submit a petition. His eyes flashed with a frightening cold light. Then he looked at the endless millions of elite soldiers and felt his blood boil. At the same time that his mental state was rapidly improving, it also directly activated the defensive measures he had left in advance, waking him up from the illusion of the struggle for supremacy. Yuhaoran couldn't help but sigh as he didn't deal with those civil officials who had harmed the nation and didn't witness the glory of the army unifying the world. He soared into the air and flew over the 4th mountain before quickly landing on the 5th mountain. Within a luxurious palace built with wine pools, several hundred stunning and enchanting beauties welcomed him with enchanting smiles. Yuhaoran, who had quickly immersed himself in his new role, shamelessly reached out and hugged 2 beauties as they sat by the wine pool. Chapter 2100. In the Bloodbone Mountain Range, the extremely luxurious environment, the stunning and enchanting beauties, and the intoxicating wine caused Yuhaoran to constantly indulge in the enjoyment of wine and meat. At the same time, a primal impulse surged in his heart, causing him to reach out and pull over a delicate beauty covered in silk. However, at this moment, the method to break the illusion formation set up by the karma law was activated, which woke him up from the greed and pleasure of wine and meat. Thinking about the influence of wine and meat on his mind and the depravity after merging with the horn, Howren felt scared. At the same time, he had to admire Heart Demon Supreme Euleron's understanding of human nature. Taking a deep breath, he calmed down the remnant primitive instinct in his body. Then, he flashed and appeared on the seventh mountain. Then, the Bloodbone Mountain range was replaced by a blood river. On the other side of the river stood countless martial disciples, martial warriors, martial masters, martial great masters, martial emperors, martial saints, martial venerables, Emperor Wu, martial gods, martial saints, and half-tribulation and mortal realm experts. Beside him, there was no one else but an ordinary iron sword. Kill. Countless experts of different realms stepped on the blood river and rushed over. Kill. He instantly got into the role and waved the iron sword in his hand to meet them. Although the iron sword was only a mortal weapon, it could kill a half-tribulation and mortal realm expert with only one strike. More than 100 martial disciples and martial saints had been killed with a single move of the basic sword technique. One strike of the basic sword technique killed more than a dozen martial venerables and Emperor Wu experts. More than a dozen martial god realm experts were sent flying by the flick of a basic sword technique. With one basic sword technique, the three-peak immortal realm experts were cut in half from the middle. Even an immortal god would constantly consume his divine power and soul power when facing an endless number of enemies. His physical strength and energy would also constantly be overdrawn. The iron sword in his hand would also be broken. Tens of millions, or even 100 million. Howren, who was completely immersed in the slaughter, had no idea how many experts had died under his broken iron sword, his open palms, or his tightly clenched iron fists. However, his heart and blood were still as cold as ice, as cold as stone. He did not stop slaughtering his enemies. Howren waited until there were no more enemies charging at him, until the river of blood turned into a boundless sea of blood, before finally stopping his numb and mechanical body. Looking at the 100-meter-high waves of the blood sea and the corpses that he had just killed, a feeling of invincibility and loneliness arose spontaneously. It was a feeling of desolation that he had no pursuits in life, making him feel as if he was better off dead than alive. Looking at his right hand that was covered in wounds, the summons in his heart made him want to end his own life. In the end, under the influence of character assimilation, he quickly raised his right hand and slammed it against his forehead. However, just as his right hand was about to hit his forehead, he set up a defense with the power of the law of karma in advance, allowing him to quickly wake up from the illusion of ending his own life. Howren couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he saw that his right hand, which had gathered 100% of his god power and soul power, was less than a centimeter away from his forehead. After that, he used his increasing mental state cultivation to quickly calm down his frightened emotions. Then, without any hesitation, he appeared at the bottom of the 9th mountain in a flash. He raised his head and looked at the top of the 9th mountain. He looked at the blood pool at the top of the mountain and saw Emperor Qin, who had sunk into the blood pool. No! Looking at the Heart Demon Supreme Luoran, who had sunk into the blood pool, Howren's eyes flashed with intense killing intent. His expression didn't change at all as he stepped onto the 9th mountain. Then, the environment of the Bloodbone Mountain range in front of him was replaced by the familiar courtyard and bamboo forest. However, the familiar long-dressed lady had become his blood-related sister, Yusiki. Father, mother, Luoran is back. When she saw Howren riding a tall horse and wearing the champion's crown, Yusiki cried out loudly as she turned around and returned to the courtyard with tears in her eyes. After that, his familiar father and mother, his familiar lover, Qin Lingfei and the Sword Without Trace, his familiar brothers, Wu Jingjun and Lu Yuan, his familiar friends, Qing Feng and Palace, his familiar seniors, Su Hanwen, the Blood Void Beast, and the Long-Armed Ape, as well as his two most important teachers, Thaling and Feng Qingyun, quickly walked out of the courtyard. Howren, who had become immersed in the illusion, quickly got off his horse and walked in front of his parents. After that, he knelt down and greeted his parents. He thanked his two lovers for their hard work. He hugged his brothers and friends warmly, greeted his seniors respectfully, and knelt down and thanked his two teachers. Under the invitation of his teacher, Thowing, everyone walked into the courtyard. However, at this moment, Howren suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around to look at Hiruyu, the woman whom he had once loved to the point of death, yet had been mercilessly abandoned, standing beside the bamboo forest. Back then, you ignored me because of my poor family background. Now, I'm the top 3 scholar, and I'm no longer someone you can climb up to. Just as he was about to turn around and enter the courtyard with a complacent smile on his face, tears slowly condensed in Hiruyu's eyes. Then, 2 drops of tears fell from her eyes. His body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. At the same time, his consciousness quickly woke up from the illusion. Just as Howren left the illusion of the 9th mountain peak, Heart Demon Sovereign Uluoran, who was trying his best to recover his peak 2nd tribulation immortal realm in the blood pool, turned as pale as paper and spat out 3 mouthfuls of essence blood. He had just recovered his peak 2nd tribulation immortal realm with great difficulty, but now he had fallen to the early 1st tribulation immortal realm. No, it's impossible. Heart Demon Sovereign Uluoran, who had quickly left the blood pool, cried out in disbelief when he saw Howren successfully break the illusion formation of the 9th mountain peak. The perfect 9 beauties illusion formation was a formation that he had created by gathering the essence of his illusions. Not only had the grade of the formation surpassed the peak supremes, but the power of the illusion formation was also strong enough to easily trap and kill a 2nd tribulation immortal realm expert. At the same time, when he had set up the perfect 9 beauties illusion formation, he hadn't completely seized Emperor Qin's body. Therefore, he couldn't reach the stage of becoming one with the formation. Although he couldn't make the perfect illusory array display its full power, he wouldn't suffer from the backlash when the illusory array was broken. The formation of a 9th mountain peak was not only the most powerful illusion formation, but also the core of the perfect 9 beauties illusion formation. It was also the foundation that maintained the existence of the entire illusion formation. Therefore, when Howren successfully broke the illusion formation of a 9th mountain peak, the illusion formations of the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th mountains disappeared simultaneously. Chapter 2101. In the Bloodbone Mountain Range. After signaling Su Hanwon and the Blood Void beast to wait on the spot, Howren slowly ascended to the peak of the mountain, above the blood pool, in front of Heart Demon Sovereign Uluoran. Seeing Howren flying before him, Heart Demon Sovereign Uluoran still couldn't believe that the illusory formation was broken and suffered a backlash. He shouted at the top of his lungs, Howren, how did you break the perfect illusory formation? And how did you use the illusory formation to create a backlash that heavily injured me? Since the illusory formation was broken and the backlash caused Heart Demon Sovereign Uluoran's strength to fall to the early stage of the immortal realm, he didn't need to break through the tribulation first. Thus, he didn't need to trigger the lightning calamity in advance to break through to the sovereign realm and lose the opportunity to break through to the complete 10th grade sovereign realm. Therefore, he didn't pay any attention to Heart Demon Sovereign Uluoran's question. He instantly overdrew 1/3 of his divine power and soul power, combined it with the immortal exterminating sword that appeared in his hand, and executed the immortal exterminating sword technique that was created by Tongtian Sovereign. Although Heart Demon Sovereign Uluoran was slightly dazed after the illusory formation was broken and his mind was severely injured, as a peak stage 2 tribulation immortal realm expert and a demon sovereign who once ran amok in the Middle Ages, his rich battle experience allowed him to immediately calm down and counterattack. 1,000 changes myriad illusions. The martial technique created by the law of nothingness caused Heart Demon Sovereign Uluoran's body to become illusory in an instant. It also caused the immortal exterminating sword to lose its target. In response, Howard didn't panic at all. The immortal exterminating sword in his hand didn't change the direction of its attack. Puff! Following a slight cracking sound in the void, Luoran, who had been pierced by the tip of the immortal exterminating sword, looked at Howard in disbelief. Howard, I beg you tell me, how did you break the perfect illusory formation? And how did you use the backlash of the illusory formation to heavily injure me? How can you see the trajectory of the illusory law? The soul body that the remnant soul had just condensed had been completely shattered by the sword energy of the Juxian sword. Now, only a trace of the remnant soul that was about to be destroyed was controlling Emperor Qin's body. Therefore, when faced with the final request of the Heart Demon Supreme, Luoran's remnant soul, Howard used his divine sense to say his sentence, which caused the remnant soul of the Heart Demon Supreme, Luoran, to completely vanish. The power of the law of karma. Except for the comfortable illusion on the first mountain, which was triggered by Emperor Qin's fall, the rest of the illusion arrays on the third, fifth, seventh, and ninth mountains all relied on the power of the law of cause and effect that had been set up in advance. Only then could they escape the illusion at the critical moment. Where there is cause, there is effect. Since he had used the power of the law of karma to break through the perfect Nine Beauties illusion formation, then the Supreme Heart Demon, Luonail, would have to endure the backlash of the formation formed by the law of karma. As for the illusory law that could see through the illusory law, it was the combination of the law of karma and the law of space. As the last trace of Luoran's remnant soul vanished, Emperor Qin's body, which had lost control, fell from the sky. While putting away the Juxian sword, Howard instantly caught Emperor Qin, who had completely lost all signs of life. He lowered his head and glanced at the blood pool that was emitting the smell of blood. His eyes revealed a trace of contemplation. Then, his divine sense, which was about to advance to the immortal realm, quickly returned to the prince's mansion. At the same time, he immediately told Wu Jingjun about the situation and the specific location of the blood pool. Then, he ordered him to quickly rush over and devour the blood essence in the blood pool to raise his cultivation to the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm so that he could break through to the supremacy realm before the immeasurable calamity began. Senior Blood Void Beast, please wait for Wu Jingjun in the Bloodbone Mountain range and protect him for a period of time. Carrying Emperor Qin's body and flying in front of the Blood Void Beast, Howard had a trace of sadness in his eyes as he requested. Howard, don't worry. I know what to do. After nodding in response, the Blood Void Beast soared into the sky and flew above the blood pool. Then, it quietly waited for Wu Zhengjuan's arrival. Senior Su returned to the prince's mansion. After calling out to Su Hanwan, Howard soared into the sky. He did not use the speed of the space rules to return to the prince's mansion. He also did not conceal the fierce killing intent and sorrowful aura that constantly surged from his body. Whether it was breaking the perfect, illusory formation or instantly killing the possessed Luoran, it did not cause too much of a commotion. Therefore, it did not attract anyone's attention. However, when he no longer concealed the sorrow and anger of losing his loved ones, his monstrous killing intent and anger immediately alerted the terror and saint experts in the 9 great forbidden lands of the Tianxian continent, as well as countless top forces and experts. Then, dozens of waves of special energy waves directly penetrated the atmosphere of the Tianxian continent and began to contact and inform the Supremes, First Calamity, Second Calamity, and Third Calamity immortal realm experts in the Endless Void. Who is it? Who offended the Son of Destiny again? In the Endless Void, a peak Second Calamity immortal realm expert immediately asked with a murderous aura. It should be known that the terror and saint experts in the Endless Void and the 8 great forbidden lands did not offend Howard easily. Firstly, they were more worried that his lawless behavior would continue to cause a bloodbath and affect the plans that many terror and saint experts have been preparing for countless years. Secondly, he was more wary of the endless number of trump cards he had, which would draw fire and implicate him. Thirdly, under the premise that the situation was unclear, most of the terror and saint experts did not want to initiate the immeasurable calamity in advance for the time, being to avoid losing the opportunity to advance to the immortal realm. In the face of the murderous aura of the terror experts in the endless void, not to mention that no one knew what was going on, even if someone knew, they would not dare to casually talk to them. Look, the dead person in Yuhauran's arms seems to be the emperor of the great Emperor Qin kingdom. After the massacre at Mount Numinous, Yuhauran's bloodthirsty reputation had been deeply imprinted in the hearts of countless experts. Therefore, although they saw him holding a dead person in his arms, no expert, not even a third calamity immortal realm expert, dared to use their divine consciousness to check. When he passed by a city in the central region, an expert who had reached the level of Emperor Wu and had a good relationship with the Emperor Qin accidentally saw the appearance of the Emperor Qin and immediately shouted in panic. Chapter 2102. Yuhauran had very few titles since his debut. Apart from his real name and the title of supporting cultivation, he only had one official title, and that was Emperor Qin's Prince Consort. The origin of the title of Prince Consort was personally conferred by the Emperor of Emperor Qin's kingdom. In order to let Yuhauran enjoy the title of Prince Consort alone, Emperor Qin took the risk of being impeached by the civil and military officials, and the risk of being forced to abdicate by Elder Shao and stripped of the title of Prince Consort for 9 generations. At the same time, when Yuhauran traveled the world, he often referred to himself as the Prince Consort. From this, it could be seen that the deep relationship between Yuhauran and Emperor Qin was not at all inferior to the relationship between him and Feng Qingyun. In order to avenge his master, Yuhauran led the people of the prince's mansion to exterminate millions of experts of spiritual mountain Buddhism, destroying the Buddhist inheritance that had been established for countless years, and slaughtering tens of millions of Buddhist believers. Then, which top power would bear the consequences of Emperor Qin's death? In the prince's mansion, since 3 hours ago, Qin Lingfei had felt an inexplicable sense of panic, as if something bad was about to happen. This made her unable to help but look for Yuhauran, hoping to find the reason for her panic from her husband. However, when faced with an empty courtyard, she could only helplessly look for the sword without trace, hoping that her sister, who served the same husband, could chat with her to relieve and eliminate the panic in her heart. However, using the method of chatting to distract her attention not only did not eliminate the panic in her heart, but also gradually felt a tearing pain in her heart. And she had personally experienced this kind of tearing pain once before. That was when Yuhauran made a blood oath with the rules of the heavenly Tao that he would single-handedly kill all the half-tribulation supreme level strange beasts in the Hongduan Mountains. However, the pain in her heart was not as intense as it was now. Qin Lingfei, who had already reached the martial god realm, quickly realized something must have happened to her family. Therefore, she did not continue to chat with the sword without trace. Instead, she unleashed her peak 3rd grade martial god realm divine sense and spread it out from the prince's mansion to search for Yuhauran. When she saw that Yuhauran was safe and sound, she couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. However, when her spiritual sense saw that the lifeless middle-aged man in Yuhauran's arms was her father, who she had missed so much, her face instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. She rushed out of the residence and rushed over like a gust of wind. "Father!" Puff! When she rushed to Yuhauran and saw the lifeless Emperor Qin with her own eyes, Qin Lingfei screamed in grief. Then, she spat out a mouthful of mind's blood and fainted. After catching the unconscious Qin Lingfei in a flash, Yuhauran sped back to the prince's mansion. However, when he passed by Xianyang City, he paused for a moment and then went back to the residence in a flash. However, Yuhauran's slight pause caused countless experts from the primordial god clan to immediately become nervous. The 7 emperor's preceptors, who had woken up, immediately gathered the 13 divine sons and 17 half-immortal realm princes. They began to guess the reason for Yu Haoran's deliberate pause and how to deal with it. After returning to his own courtyard, Yu Haoran took out the last crystal coffin from his storage ring and put Emperor Qin into the coffin steadily. Then, he used the divine elixir to wake up the unconscious Qin Lingfei. Father, after waking up, Qin Lingfei climbed onto the crystal coffin and cried bitterly. Yu Haoran didn't try to persuade her. He just stood beside her and cried with her. Together, they reminisced about the time they had spent with Emperor Qin. My husband, who is the murderer? After crying bitterly for more than an hour, Qin Lingfei, whose grief had eased a little, asked with a cold face and murderous eyes. The murderer has been killed by me. Reaching out, Yu Haoran hugged Qin Lingfei tightly in his arms. From the beginning, he suspected that the Qin Emperor cultivated a forbidden secret technique, to how he was possessed by the heart demon supreme Yu Luoran, and how she took revenge. He told her everything. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Qin Lingfei felt heartache. She was also angry and disappointed with Emperor Qin. She was angry at his greed and disappointed that he had fallen into the devil's path. Lingfei, although Imperial Father's murderer has been executed, he still has unfinished wishes that we need to help him fulfill. Seeing that Qin Lingfei's emotions were gradually calming down, Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he also mentioned that on the way back to the Prince Consort's residence, he had thought of fulfilling the Qin Emperor's final wish. Prince Consort, what last wish? Qin Lingfei immediately raised her head and asked, destroy the Zhou clan and take back the lost Xianyang city. Yu Haoran turned his head and looked in the direction of Xianyang city. His voice was filled with intense, killing intent. Destroying the Zhou clan was a promise that he had personally made. Taking back Xianyang city was a guess that he had made based on Emperor Qin's personality. Prince Consort, regardless of whether it's the battle against the Zhou clan or the massacre of the Primordial God clan, I want to be at the front lines personally. I want to personally wield my sword and kill the enemy. Hearing Yu Haoran mention her father's last wishes, Qin Lingfei immediately demanded with a murderous aura. In response, Yu Haoran nodded in tacit agreement. He looked at Emperor Qin lying in the coffin and reminded her with a lonely expression. Lingfei, as the ruler of a country, my father's funeral can't be too simple and shabby. Therefore, I plan to give my father a grand state funeral after taking back Xianyang City and the Imperial Palace, as well as the tens of millions of troops that have conquered the Central Domain. Prince Consort, thank you. Regardless of whether it was destroying the Zhou clan, which had been passed down from the Middle Ages, or the funeral after taking back Xianyang City from the Primordial God clan, the opponents that Yu Haoran faced, and the things that he did were all for her most beloved father. How could Qin Lingfei not be moved by this? Fool, you are my most beloved wife. His Majesty is my father. As the Prince Consort, it is my duty to fulfill his last wishes. Holding Qin Lingfei tightly in his arms, Yu Haoran criticized her with heartache. At the same time, he turned his head and looked towards the south of the prince's mansion. A trace of hesitation appeared in his eyes. This was because he didn't know whether he should go see that person before launching the conquest of the Zhou clan. Did he need to ask for her opinion? The Peach Blossom Lake was located in the southwest of the Southern Domain. It was a remote place where the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was very thin. However, although the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was thin, the beautiful scenery and simple folk customs made it a paradise that wouldn't suffer any turmoil. Chapter 2103 Peach Blossom Lake AI Yu Haoran couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the brand-new courtyard at the east end of the village. He walked to the entrance of the courtyard and lightly knocked on the door a few times. Bang, bang, bang. Zhou Mingling, who was dressed like a village girl, was tidying up the vegetables and fruits she had personally planted in the courtyard. She couldn't help but frown when she suddenly heard the knock on the door that hadn't sounded in a long time. But when she remembered that there was someone who knew about her secluded place, her eyes immediately revealed a look of surprise and joy as she rushed to the courtyard door and opened it with trembling hands. "You Xiang, it really is you." When she saw the man she had been thinking about day and night standing outside the courtyard door, longing, excitement, grievance, happiness, and other complex emotions attacked her, causing tears to stream down her cheeks. She couldn't control her emotions as she rushed in front of him and hugged him tightly. She was originally a proud daughter of heaven who had abandoned everything to live in seclusion. The huge difference in status and identity would cause a person to accumulate endless grievances in their heart. Therefore, Yuhaoran didn't dodge and allowed her to hug him. He even reached out and patted her shoulder lightly. "You Xiang, I'm sorry." After hugging for nearly 10 minutes, Zhou Mengling gradually calmed down and realized that she had lost her composure. Her face was as red as an apple as she hurriedly took 2 steps back. "Junior Zhou, aren't you going to invite me in?" In order to alleviate Zhou Mengling's awkwardness, Yuhaoran took the initiative to make a joke. "You Xiang, please come in." Yuhaoran's joke made Zhou Mengling forget her previous awkwardness as she invited him in with a smile. "You Xiang, the environment here is rather simple and crude. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is also very thin. It can't grow the spiritual fruits you usually enjoy." Indicating that Yuhaoran was sitting on a stone chair in the courtyard, Zhou Mengling picked a few fruits that had just ripened, as she also joked. "Therefore, I can only take out fruits that ordinary people eat to entertain you. It's okay. I'm not the kind of person who is greedy for food." While waving his hand, Yuhaoran reached out and picked up a red tomato. He directly opened his mouth and took a big bite, then praised sincerely. "There's sourness in the freshness, sweetness in the sourness, and fragrance in the sweetness. Junior sister's skill in growing fruits is not bad." After hearing Yuhaoran's sincere praise, Zhou Mengling also felt very happy. She picked up a tomato and tasted it happily. "Junior sister, I'm here this time." After finishing the tomato in his hand, Yuhaoran pondered for a moment. Then, he opened his mouth and wanted to say the purpose of his visit. However, before he could finish his sentence, Zhou Mengling interrupted him. "Senior brother, if you want to do it, then do it. You don't have to consider junior sister's feelings." The smile on Zhou Mengling's face was instantly replaced by sadness as she spoke with a desolate expression. In fact, when her excited emotions calmed down, Zhou Mengling had already guessed the reason for Yuhaoran's visit. After all, she was not only a witness to the enmity between Yuhaoran and the Zhou clan, but also a participant. She knew very well that the relationship between them was irreconcilable. "Junior sister, I will try my best to keep the clan leader alive." Zhou Mengling's desolate expression made Yuhaoran feel a slight heartache. He hurriedly made a promise. "Senior brother, you don't have to take the risk for me." After shaking her head to reject Yuhaoran's good intentions, Zhou Mengling stood up and looked in the direction of the central region. She said with a slightly helpless expression, "Because I know my father's character too well. I know that he is a person who would rather die than live in dishonor. I know that he is a person who knows how to endure and is good at seizing opportunities. If senior brother wants to smoothly exterminate the Zhou clan, then my father's existence will be the biggest obstacle." Speaking until here, Zhou Mengling turned around and looked at Yuhaoran with a pleading gaze in her eyes. "Senior brother, junior sister only hopes that you can leave my father's corpse intact so that I can bury him with my own hands, and that I can offer sacrifices to my father every year. Junior sister, I promise you." Yuhaoran nodded and stood up to walk in front of Zhou Mengling. He directly reached out his hands and hugged her in his arms. Then, they silently felt each other's heartbeat and thoughts. Perhaps it was because of the warm embrace, or perhaps it was because of the mental exhaustion. Zhou Mengling, who usually slept very little, unknowingly fell asleep. When she woke up from her dream, she found herself lying on a bed in the loft. Her body was covered with a 7-colored auspicious cloud blanket, refined from clouds and mist. An exquisite storage ring was placed beside her pillow. When Zhou Mengling's divine sense swept through the space of the storage ring, she suddenly sat up with an expression of disbelief on her face. This was because the storage ring contained 3 first-level upper-grade divine veins, more than 21st level to 9th level divine pills, 5 sacred pills that surpass the first level, a full set of Supreme Being defensive artifacts, 3 cultivation insights of Emperor Wu, the martial god, and the Supreme Being realm, as well as a peach of immortality and a ginseng fruit. Not only could these top-notch cultivation resources and treasures make up for the potential she had lost, but they could also help her advance to the martial god realm of immortality. Yu Shixiang, don't worry. Junior sister will use the cultivation resources you gave me to obtain an immortal life. Then, I will become a woman who will always wait for you. Holding the storage ring tightly, Zhou Mingling walked to the windowsill and looked in the direction of the prince's mansion. In the prince's mansion, after leaving the Peach Blossom Lake and returning to the mansion, Yu Haoran did not immediately start the Zhou clan's expedition. Instead, he returned to the training room in the courtyard. This was because the 5 perfect illusions not only allowed his state of mind cultivation to reach the peak of 9th level Supreme Being, but also allowed his consciousness to strengthen the power of the law of karma. Therefore, before he started the Zhou clan's expedition, he had to raise his cultivation and strength to the limit, and also try to raise the power of the law of karma to the level of the law of profound mysteries. Fortunately, he could use the space-time Victor's time acceleration to raise his strength and laws, so it would not affect the Zhou clan's expedition. The sun rose in the east and set in the west. A day and a night had passed in the blink of an eye. Using the Victor's strongest time acceleration, Yu Haoran had spent close to 100 years. After 100 years of cultivation, not only had his physical body, divine power, and soul power reached the peak of 9th level Supreme Being, but the power of the law of karma had also successfully advanced to the level of the profound mysteries. At the same time, using the profound mysteries of the law of karma to deprive the Destiny Stone Tablet, he unexpectedly obtained a trace of the aura of the immortal realm. At this moment, he already had the potential to directly break through to the complete 10th grade Supreme Being realm. He could even use the trace of the immortal realm to break through to the half-immortal realm. Chapter 2104. Inside the prince's mansion, because the law of karma had advanced to the profound mysteries level, he had a very strong feeling that his breakthrough to the autark realm could affect the immeasurable calamity in advance. It also involved the opportunity that he had been searching for all this time. After finishing his cultivation and leaving the cultivation room, Yu Haoran walked towards the plaza in front of the mansion. However, when he passed by Wu Zhengjuan's courtyard, he unexpectedly sensed Zhongli Shuiqin's aura. Stopping his footsteps, he let out a soft sigh before pushing open the courtyard door and entering the courtyard. According to the marriage contract signed with the Zhongli family, Wu Zhengjun was supposed to marry Zhongli Shuiqin in 2 days. However, the world was constantly changing. Not only did the Supremacy Realm ancestors who returned to the Zhongli family not long ago deny the marriage contract between Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin, they even used the secret method left behind by Eternal Green Supremacy and Zhongli Shuiqin's blood essence to cancel the marriage contract that had been approved by the heavens. It wasn't easy for them to seize the chance when the consort mansion was besieged and use the 4 divine beasts to eliminate all the great masters of the Zhongli family. However, when the half-tribulation immortal realm old ancestor came back, a problem arose in their marriage. Senior brother, when she saw Yu Haoran enter the courtyard, Zhongli Shuiqin, who was sitting in the pavilion, quickly stood up and greeted him. Have a seat. After indicating for Zhongli Shuiqin to sit, Yu Haoran sighed and reminded her. Miss Shuiqin, Zhengjun is currently cultivating on the 9th peak of the Bloodbone Mountain Range. Senior brother, do you think Xiaojun and I can continue to be together? After hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, Zhongli Shuiqin didn't rush to find Wu Zhengjun. Instead, she looked straight into his eyes and asked, Yes. Yu Haoran nodded without hesitation when he saw Zhongli Shuiqin's slightly shaken confidence. As long as you're determined to leave the Zhongli family, you and Xiaojun can be together forever. Senior brother, what should I do about my family? Zhongli Shuiqin had also considered Yu Haoran's request, but she couldn't abandon her parents, who had raised her for decades, just because of her selfishness and love. Your father still can't bear to give up the position and authority of the patriarch, Yu Haoran asked. In fact, after he killed the supremacy realm ancestor of the Zhongli family, he had used his divine sense to talk to Zhongli Shuiqin and Zhongli Shuiqin. He had told them to bring their families and confidants away from the Zhongli family and move to the prince's mansion, which was more suitable for cultivation. After all, the patriarch of the family, Zhongli Shuiqin's Zhongli Shuiqin, the patriarch of the family, patriarch of the family. Shuiqin's, Shuiqin, 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 patriarch, Shuiqin, patriarch. Therefore, if they wanted to completely resolve the marriage between Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin, they had to completely break free from the Zhongli family shackles. However, Zhongli Qingyang was unwilling to give up the position of patriarch, and at the same time, he had a trace of confidence in the stronger patriarchs. This led to a huge change in the marriage between Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin. It might even end completely. Sigh. Zhongli Shuiqin, who couldn't do anything about her father, sighed softly in the face of Yu Haoran's questioning. She didn't know what to say. Miss Shuiqin, go to the Bloodbone Mountain Range and meet Jingjun. Then, return to the Zhongli family and tell the patriarch and senior Mingjing that the wedding in 2 days will go on as usual. After the massacre caused by the Zhou family's expedition, after losing the guidance of the first clone to the boundless evil qi, blood qi, and resentment, it might completely block the restriction of the rules of heaven on the terrifying and saint experts in the endless void. At that time, whether or not the infinite calamity was initiated in advance, the entire prince's mansion would enter a long period of passive defense. There wouldn't be any chance or time to deal with a marriage between Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin. Therefore, after careful consideration, Yu Haoran decided to completely resolve the wedding before the Zhou family's expedition. Really? Zhongli Shuiqin stood up in surprise. That's right. Yu Haoran, who also stood up and looked at the central region, said indifferently, Miss Shuiqin, when you go back, help me warn those half-tribulation immortal realm old men. Just tell them that I, Yu Haoran, am in a bad mood recently. I hope they can tactfully agree to the marriage. Otherwise, I'll directly destroy the Sunset Lake and make the Zhongli family history. Thank you, senior brother. Zhongli Shuiqin didn't hesitate at all to choose between being with the person she loved forever or choosing those old ancestors who were separated by many generations and whom she had never met before. Therefore, as long as nothing happened to her parents, she didn't care about the life and death of the Zhongli family. Go. Let's go see Zhongjun and inform him of my decision. After waving his hand, Yu Haoran walked out of the courtyard and went to the morning hall built in the front yard of the mansion. Greetings, Prince Consort. Just as he arrived at the front yard, Steward Jiang, who had been kneeling outside the morning hall, quickly stood up and went down on both knees to greet him. While helping Steward Jiang up, Yu Haoran looked at Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace who were kneeling in front of the crystal coffin in the morning hall. His eyes were filled with pain and anger. Back then, the reason he carried the Qin Emperor's corpse and flew back to the Prince Consort's residence was not only to express his grief and anger, but also to use this method to inform the princes and nobles who had accompanied the Qin Emperor on the campaign. He wanted them to quickly lead the army back to the southern region and attend the Qin Emperor's final wishes and funeral. But now, in the morning hall, other than his wife Qin Lingfei, there weren't any direct bloodline princes or princesses, nor were there any nobles. Prince Consort, other than the crown prince who fainted due to extreme sadness, the princess arranged for him to rest in the courtyard. When he heard Yu Haoran ask about His Majesty's blood relatives and subordinates, General Manager Jiang felt unusually angry and explained. The remaining princes, princesses, princes, lords, and commanders directly divided the army and declared themselves kings. What about Marshal Meng? What about the other 3 marshals and the Prime Minister? Other than His Majesty's Tiger Tally, Only the three marshals and the prime minister, who led troops all year round, had the ability and qualifications to divide the army. Why didn't those loyal to His Majesty appear to stop them? Prince Consort, the three marshals, and the prime minister, as well as those loyal old officials, have long been secretly dealt with by the demon who controlled His Majesty's mind. Steward Jiang replied with tears in his eyes when he heard Yu Haoran ask about Meng Zhengkai and the others. Chapter 2105. Inside the prince's mansion, Yu Haoran had already expected the deaths of Meng Zhengkai and the other marshals and prime ministers. When Meng Zhengkai had come to him for help, he had not only promised to help Emperor Qin deal with the martial god expert of the Zhou clan, but also secretly gave Meng Zhengkai a jade communication talisman that allowed him to contact him alone. If nothing had happened to Meng Zhengkai, he would have informed him in advance of Emperor Qin's abnormal behavior. Then, he would not have allowed Yu Luoran, the supreme inner demon, to succeed in her plot to possess his body. If it was said that he felt pity and sorrow for the deaths of Meng Zhengkai and the other old marshals and old prime ministers, then he felt abnormally angry at the betrayal of the princes and nobles. Back then, he had almost fallen out with his sect and Emperor Qin, and almost separated from Qin Lingfei. Although Qin Baijun of the Court of Imperial Clan was the main culprit, the princes and nobles who supported the Court of Imperial Clan were also accomplices. If it were not for Emperor Qin and Qin Lingfei, he would have secretly gotten rid of those fellows with ulterior motives. However, although he did not have the time and mood to deal with those fellows, he had the means to punish them. Steward Jiang, collect the evidence of those people's crimes. When I take back Xianyang City and the first prince succeeds the throne, I will issue an edict to arrest and kill all the traitors. Yes, Steward Jiang. After hearing Yu Haoran's guarantee that the Qin clan's bloodline was legitimate, Steward Jiang immediately knelt down and listened to the order excitedly. That's right. When Yu Haoran was about to enter the morning hall, he suddenly realized that he seemed to have forgotten a very important person. He quickly stopped and asked, "Steward Jiang, where's the Empress Dowager?" In the face of Yu Haoran's questioning about the whereabouts of the Empress Dowager Zixin, Director Jiang suddenly did not know how to answer. Although Empress Dowager Zixin did not collectively betray the imperial family like those princes and nobles, her sudden departure to look for someone not only damaged the imperial family's reputation, but also provoked Yu Haoran's dissatisfaction. After all, that person had an irreconcilable relationship with the prince consort. Forget it. She is also a pitiful person. Let her be. Yu Haoran immediately guessed Zixuan's whereabouts when he saw Jiang Zhongwan's hesitant look. Although he was a little unhappy about this, he wasn't too angry or dissatisfied. What's more, Qin Baijun had been forced to hide in the rainforest of the southern border, living every day in fear. It could be considered as the punishment he deserved. Therefore, he took the initiative to forget about the grievances between Qin Baijun and the Empress Dowager Zixin. After stepping into the morning hall, Yu Haoran first kowtowed 3 times to the body of Emperor Qin. Then, he got up and greeted Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace. Lingfei Wuhan, come out for a while. After leaving the morning hall, Yu Haoran explained in detail the wedding of Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin 2 days later. Although Qin Lingfei was a little uncomfortable, she didn't show it and nodded. Because Wu Jingjun was Yu Haoran's most valued and trusted brother, their relationship was not inferior to that of her, the person who slept next to him. She didn't want to provoke her man's dissatisfaction because of her selfish thoughts. Lingfei, I will have Thaling set up a formation that completely isolates the morning hall. I won't let Jingjun and Shuiqin's wedding disturb Imperial Father's peace. Although Qin Lingfei didn't show the slightest dissatisfaction, Yu Haoran could feel that she was in low spirits. Feeling guilty, he hugged her in his arms and thought of a way to dispel her dissatisfaction. At the same time, before we start the war against the Zhou clan, I will do everything I can to subdue Xianyang City and move Imperial Father's body and Morning Hall to the Hall of Tai. Then, We will hold a national ceremony that suits imperial father's status. Prince Consort, don't worry. Little sister Wuhin and I will properly arrange Xiao Jun and sister Sui Jin's wedding. We won't let the outside world pick on us. At the same time, we will make sister Sui Jin very satisfied. Yu Haoran's wholehearted consideration for her completely dispelled Qin Ling Fei's dissatisfaction. As she forcefully responded to Yu Haoran's hug, she also gave her own assurance. After instructing Thowling and his clone to set up a formation that isolated the morning hall, Yu Haoran turned around and returned to his courtyard. He then took out a box from his storage ring. He slowly opened the box and looked at the green leaf in it. A trace of hesitation appeared in his eyes. Of the 4 protector clans and the 5 hidden clans, the only one that he truly couldn't fathom and feared was the Zhongli clan, which seemed to have existed in the Middle Ages, but had actually existed since the primordial era. To be more precise, he feared the ancestor of the Zhongli clan, the mysterious sovereign Evergreen. This was because through the inherited memories of the ancient 12 ancestral sorcerers, as well as Thowling's narration of the Great War of ritual implements at the beginning of the world, he suspected that Sovereign Evergreen was very likely to be the same as Su Hanwen. He was also a Khanate life form born from the chaos. At the same time, according to the rankings of countless life forms on the Destiny Stone tablet, he had a feeling that Sovereign Evergreen was very likely to be a saint expert at the peak of the immortal level. Therefore, before he forced the Zhongli clan to agree to the marriage between Wu Zhenjun and Zhongli Shuiqin, he needed to ascertain Sovereign Evergreen's attitude. To be more precise, he needed to know Sovereign Evergreen's exact whereabouts. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran activated the mysteries of the law of karma, while his 10 fingers began to form Fushi's 8 trigrams innate divination technique. He planned to use the combination of his technique and the mysteries of the law to predict the most powerful life form in the world. As the seals formed by his 10 fingers and the comprehension of the law of karma fused into the green leaf, the leaf that slowly floated up gradually became transparent. The transparent leaf was like a mirror. Gradually, an ancient tomb appeared on the surface of the mirror, and an old man in a green Taoist robe sat cross-legged in front of the tomb with a kind expression. His appearance was 60 to 70% similar to Zhongli Shuiqin's. The moment he saw the ancient tomb and the green-robed old man, Yu Haoran immediately retracted his comprehension of the profound mysteries of the law of karma. He also immediately dispersed the condensed magical energy and quickly put the leaf back into the box. Only now did he finally let out a long sigh of relief. As someone who had been reborn 100 years ago, Yu Haoran was all too familiar with the ancient tomb. This was because the ancient tomb was said to be able to bury countless gods and demons. In his previous life, it was known as the number 1 forbidden land in the Tianxian continent, the demonic god ancient tomb. Chapter 2106. Inside the prince's mansion. Back then, when his formula Tao successfully advanced to the magic god realm, he not only learned that the demonic god's ancient tomb still existed, but he also deduced that the ancient tomb's spatial fault was under the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. However, he couldn't find the exact location of the demonic god's ancient tomb's spatial fault because he didn't completely grasp the essence of the space law. Now, with the guidance of the fallen leaf of Eternal Green Supreme, he only needed to advance to the peak magic god realm in formula Tao to successfully find the exact location of the demonic god's ancient tomb by combining the space law. Of course, the premise was that he had to have the strength to resist the peak of the immortal realm. Because the demonic god's ancient tomb contained a heaven-defying opportunity that could directly break through to the immortal realm, Eternal Green Supreme, who had been guarding the ancient tomb for countless years, definitely wouldn't sit idly by. In the end, there would definitely be a life-and-death battle. After taking a deep breath and calming down the joy in his heart, Yu Haoran began to use his divine sense to inform everyone in the mansion to prepare for the forced marriage and kidnapping operation in 2 days. As for the biggest obstacle and opponent, eternal green supreme, he didn't need to consider it for the time being. Because even he, the son of destiny who was proficient in the space law, couldn't find the exact location of the demonic god's ancient tomb's spatial fault. Therefore, eternal green supreme, who was lucky enough to find the demonic god's ancient tomb, definitely wouldn't dare to leave the spatial fault. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't be lucky enough to find the exact location of the demonic god's ancient tomb's spatial fault a second time. In Yu Haoran's opinion, even if the entire Zhongli family was completely annihilated, even if the Sunset Island was directly destroyed, he would still turn a blind eye and continue to guard the ancient tomb. After all, the inheritance of the family bloodline couldn't be compared to the eternal immortal realm. Although it was a forced marriage and kidnapping operation, it was related to the happiness of Wu Zhongjun and Zhongli Shuiqin. The necessary etiquette and methods couldn't be lacking. Therefore, after everyone's discussion, in addition to preparing 18 kinds of top-notch betrothal gifts, Yu Haoran, as the eldest brother, Su Hanwen, long-armed ape, and Qing Feng as the elders, Lu Yuan and Palace as the brothers, and Yu Siki and the Sword Without Trace as the representatives of the bride's family. They formed a team to escort the bride and headed to the Sunset Island where the Zhongli family was located. As the eldest sister-in-law, Qin Lingfei led the younger generation, Yun Xiang and Feng Man, to decorate and prepare for the wedding. However, considering the reluctance of the Zhongli clan supremes and half-tribulation immortal ancestors, everyone returned to their own cultivation rooms and seized the last bit of time to improve their cultivation base and strength. As the sun rose from the east for the second time, and the sun set for the second time, 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Wu Jingjun, who was wearing a red groom's robe, stepped on the back of Black Tortoise, who had successfully reached the one tribulation immortal realm, with a hint of expectation and nervousness in his eyes. As the eldest brother, Yu Haoran was standing on a divine dragon that was less than 1,000 meters long and was emitting 9-colored light all over its body. This divine dragon emitting 9-colored light was the third pet beast that he signed a contract with using his doppelganger, the ancestral dragon, who was known as the origin of the bloodline of all dragons. At this moment, the ancestral dragon, who had successfully swallowed and refined 9 divine beasts of the dragon family, had reached the peak of the 9th grade supreme realm. Next, he only needed to absorb the dragon's origin scattered between heaven and earth to break through to the half-tribulation immortal realm and become a 3-tribulation immortal saint expert in the shortest time possible. This was the reason why the ancestral dragon, who could smoothly grow up, made countless divine beasts and demonic beasts of the dragon family fear and dread. Behind Yu Haoran, Su Hanwen, the blood void beast, the long-armed ape, and Qing Feng stood on the backs of the 4 flood dragons that guarded the prince's mansion. At this moment, the 4 elemental flood dragons had successfully reached the divine beast realm with the help of the innate spiritual energy in the mansion. Yu Siki, the Sword Without Trace, and Lu Yuan stood on the foreheads and backs of the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the blue dragon respectively. However, compared to when they had just signed the pet beast contract, the 3 divine beast grades and strengths had undergone tremendous changes. The blue dragon had successfully reached the early stage of the 1 tribulation immortal realm with the help of Lu Yuan's luck as the son of sword and the innate spiritual energy in the mansion. The white tiger had reached the high stage of the 1 tribulation immortal realm with the help of the ancestral bloodline that it had devoured and refined, as well as the innate spiritual energy in the mansion. The vermilion bird had directly reached the peak of the 1 tribulation immortal realm with the fire elemental energy and cultivation comprehension in a 9-colored feather branch left by its ancestor. At this moment, the prince's mansion was the real top force in the Tianxin continent. Let's go. Since everything had been prepared, Yu Haoran did not continue to delay. He waved his hand. If there was a force in the Tianxin continent that attracted the most attention, it would be the prince's mansion without a doubt. This was because the prince's mansion not only had many top talents, but also the son of destiny who could start and end the immeasurable calamity. Just as Yu Haoren led the people of the mansion out of the mountains, many forces and experts in the Tianxin continent and the endless void were alerted. While they were paying attention, they were also guessing and discussing the reason why the top talents and experts of the mansion left the mansion. In the meeting hall of the Zhongli family on the Sunset Island, 11 old ancestors of the half-tribulation immortal realm and 23 old ancestors of the supreme realm were all sitting there with solemn expressions. On the other hand, Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing, who had always been neglected, stood in the center of the discussion hall. They nervously stared at the old man who sat on the patriarch's throne and gave off a refreshing presence. Qingyang, Mingjing, wait for the Son of Destiny outside the Sunset Island. Tell them that the Zhongli family is against this marriage. Tell them to go wherever they want. After glancing at everyone in the hall, the old man's eyes finally stopped at Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing. He ordered with an indifferent expression. Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing glanced at each other when they heard the green-robed old man's order. Zhongli Mingjing, who was more powerful and had a stronger mental state, took the risk of cupping his hands and questioning Yu Haoren. Old Ancestor Greenpine, I really don't understand why you and the other old ancestors are against the marriage between Xiao Jun and Shui Qin. Why aren't you willing to ally with the Son of Destiny, who can control fate? How dare you? Just as Zhongli Mingjing finished his questioning, a peak grade 9 sovereign old ancestor on the west side of the hall stood up abruptly and shouted, Zhongli Mingjing, who gave you the courage to actually question Ancestor Pine Tree to his face? Chapter 2107 Sunset Island, Zhongli Clan's Meeting Hall. Facing Zhongli Mingjing's gaze, old Ancestor Pine Tree raised his hand to signal the 9th grade sovereign ancestor to be quiet. He then fell in a deep thought. In fact, the reason for opposing the marriage between Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin and refusing to cooperate with Yu Haoren was simple. It was nothing more than jealousy and fear. The children of destiny of the ancient, middle, and recent ancient times were protected by the heavenly way, favored by the heavenly fate, and protected by the fate rule. From the moment they stepped on the path of cultivation to the sovereign realm experts, who could influence the entire situation of the world, they spent at least thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. But what about Yu Haoren? Excluding the 1 year wasted by being demoted to a servant, he only spent less than 5 years growing. His achievements far surpassed the other 3 children of destiny. This made the experts of the inherited families, who thought highly of their bloodlines and had complete inheritances, spend tens of thousands of years, millions of years, or even countless years to barely reach the sovereign realm and half-tribulation immortal realm. How could they not be jealous? How could they be willing to lower their status and condescend to him? At the same time, no matter how outstanding the children of destiny of the ancient, middle, and recent ancient times were, they needed the help of their allies and experts during their growth. Sometimes they even had to accept some humiliating conditions from their allies and experts. But what about Yu Haoren? Without the help of any allied forces or experts, he had established the prince consort's residence, which was not inferior to the hidden inherited clans, through his own hard work. He had also led his close friends and family who were willing to follow him to grow into experts who could affect the world. With such shocking courage, he would definitely not accept the humiliating conditions put forward by the allied forces and experts. More importantly, no matter what kind of danger or predicament he encountered, Yu Haoren had the means to deal with it. He had never shown any signs of retreat or compromise. Such endless trump cards, such preemptive methods, would make the forces and experts who wanted to ally with him fearful. They would be fearful of their position and safety after the alliance. However, the reason for their jealousy and fear could not be directly explained to Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing. Therefore, Ancestor Pine Tree asked with an indifferent expression after ending his deep contemplation. Mingjing, the fact that you can't form an alliance with the Chosen One is related to the secrets of the Zhongli clan. With your current status and strength, you don't have the right to know about it for now. If I, as the first patriarch of the Zhongli clan and the first ancestor of the Zhongli clan, order you to stop Yu Haoran with all your might, I wonder if you and Qingyang would refuse or gladly agree. Alas, seeing that old ancestor pine tree was unwilling to reveal the reason why he refused to form an alliance with Yu Haoran, Zhongli Mingjing sighed and cupped his hands in response. Replying to Patriarch Pine Tree, Mingjing and Qingyang are members of the Zhongli clan in life and in death. Their souls belong to the Zhongli clan. We will carry out your orders seriously. Zhongli Mingjing's tone suddenly changed as he smiled bitterly. However, with my cultivation as a first tribulation sovereign and the patriarch's cultivation as a second-stage martial god, I'm afraid we can't even withstand the aura Yu Haoran unintentionally emitted. How can we make him obediently leave Sunset Island? Is that so? Hearing Zhongli Mingjing's complaint, old ancestor Pine Tree sneered and asked in reply. He then waved his sleeves and shot out 2 gusts of wind, sealing Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang completely. Immediately after, old ancestor Pine Tree ordered the peak 9th grade sovereign ancestor who had just reprimanded Zhongli Mingjing. Hao Yuan, take them and wait outside Sunset Island for Yu Haoran. If Yu Haoran doesn't listen to the order and leave, kill them directly. Hao Yuan, listen to the order. Zhongli Hao Yuan responded excitedly and appeared beside Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang in a flash. He then grabbed their necks and left the meeting hall. Feng Hao. After Zhongli Hao Yuan left the meeting hall with Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, old ancestor Pine Tree ordered an early-stage second tribulation immortal realm ancestor. Feng Hao, listen to the order. Hearing the order, Zhongli Feng Hao quickly stood up and replied. Seal Zhongli Shuiqin and Madame Su and bring them outside Sunset Island as a threat. If Yu Haoran doesn't leave obediently, kill them as well. Feng Hao, listen to the order. After replying indifferently, Zhongli Feng Hao left the discussion hall in a flash. He directly arrived beside Zhongli Shuiqin, who was dressing up and waiting to get married. Afterwards, he directly sealed Zhongli Shuiqin and her mother, Madame Su, and took them away. Fortunately, Zhongli Shuiqin's elder brother, Zhongli Shuai's, had been cultivating in seclusion in the secret realm refined by eternal green sovereign. He didn't witness the cold-bloodedness and shamelessness of the family's elders. Otherwise, with his violent and upright temperament and character, he would have fought with his life on the line against these arrogant ancestors. The team heading to Sunset Island to welcome the new bride could be said to have gathered the strongest forces in the prince's mansion. Therefore, the speed of the entire team was quite fast. Half an hour later, under the lead of Wu Jingjun and the Black Tortoise, they had arrived outside Sunset Island. However, when they saw Zhongli Shuiqin, Zhongli Mingjing, and Zhongli Qingyang floating above the island with their cultivation base and strength sealed, everyone in the prince's mansion couldn't help but change their expression. Although they knew that this wedding wouldn't go smoothly, they didn't expect the half-tribulation immortal realm elders of the Zhongli family to capture and seal Zhongli Shuiqin and the others. Let them go. Wu Zhengjun, with his long hair fluttering in the wind, yelled at Zhongli Hao Yuan and Zhongli Feng Hao, who were also floating above the island while emitting a monstrous killing intent. Facing Wu Zhengjun's yelling, Zhongli Hao Yuan flashed and appeared between Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, pressing both his hands on their heads. At the same time, Zhongli Feng Hao appeared between Zhongli Shuiqin and her mother, pressing both of his hands on their heads. Then, Zhongli Hao Yuan yelled at Yu Haoran, who was standing behind Wu Zhengjun. I'll count to 3. If you and your men don't get out of Sunset Island immediately, Ancestor Feng Hao and I will crush their heads and erase their divine souls. Facing Zhongli Hao Yuan's threat, Yu Haoran's face turned gloomy, but he didn't reply whether they should leave or not. 3. Zhongli Hao Yuan didn't waste any time and directly started the countdown. 2, 1. Wait. Just as Zhongli Hao Yuan shouted the last number of the countdown, Yu Haoran suddenly spoke to stop him. Chapter 2108. above the Sunset Island. That's right. I've thought it through. Yu Haoran's gloomy face was gradually replaced by a smile. He nodded as if he had accepted the humiliation. However, his tone suddenly changed, which made Zhongli Hao Yuan and Zhongli Feng Hao's faces change. However, it's not me, Yu Haoran, who will obediently get out of the Sunset Island. It's you two inhumane bastards who deserve to die. Do it. Along with Yu Haoran's roar, two swords with sharp killing intent pierced into Zhongli Hao Yuan and Zhongli Feng Hao's sea of consciousness between their eyebrows. Immediately after, Thaling, who was controlling the body of the purifying world King Mu Bai, and the giant spirit devouring ant of the King of Hell, slowly emerged from the sword hilt. Damn it! Just as Zhongli Hao Yuan and Zhongli Feng Hao were killed by the joint sneak attack of the Thaling and the King of Hell, an angry roar that could shatter the void suddenly came from the Sunset Island. Su Hanwen appeared in front of everyone in a flash. He waved the willow branch in his hand to disperse the impact of the sound wave. Then, he introduced him to Yu Haoran with a solemn expression. The only son of Eternal Green Supreme, the founder of the Zhongli family. Currently, the strongest expert of the Zhongli family, Zhongli Qingsong, an early-stage immortal realm expert. His strength is on par with mine. Hearing that Zhongli Qingsong, an early-stage immortal realm expert, was the founder and the strongest expert of the Zhongli family, Yu Haoran couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, he hurriedly asked Su Hanwen to hold him back so that he could give the Zhongli family an unforgettable lesson. No problem. Even without Yu Haoran's request, Su Hanwen would have taken the initiative to deal with Zhongli Qingsong. However, at this moment, he had a question in his heart. A question that he didn't know if he should take the initiative to ask. Seeing Su Hanwen's hesitant look, Yu Haoran didn't need to think too much to know what he wanted to ask, or rather, what everyone in the prince's mansion wanted to know. How did Thaling and King of Hell know that Zhongli Shuiqin and the others would be captured alive and used to threaten them? How did they ambush Zhongli Hao Yuan and Zhongli Feng Hao? Yu Haoran thought about it for a while and decided to reveal it to Su Hanwen alone. After all, he still needed to deal with Zhongli Qingsong, who was at the early stage of the Third Tribulation Immortal Realm with all his strength. Time law energy that can traverse the river of history. Could it be an empty spirit mouse? Su Hanwen, who had some understanding of the four great spirit mice at the beginning of the world, immediately used the divine consciousness inheritance to ask. Yu Haoran nodded in agreement. In fact, when they had just crossed the twin Ox Mountain and entered the territory of the Central Region, he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Therefore, he let his second doppelganger take the empty spirit mouse to the Sunset Island in advance by using the method of tearing the void. Then, the empty spirit mouse used the time law energy to enter the river of history for a period of time in the future. It happened to see how Zhongli Hao Yuan and Zhongli Feng Hao used Zhongli Shuiqin and the others to threaten them. Therefore, he asked the pagoda spirit to set up an aura-concealing array formation on the Sunset Island in advance, and then let the pagoda spirit control Mu Beiying's body and the giant spirit devouring ant to hide in the array formation, waiting for the moment of rescue. After getting Yu Haoran's acquiescence, Su Hanwen looked at the empty spirit mouse standing on his shoulder with an extremely shocked and thoughtful look in his eyes. It sounded like entering the river of history to see the past, and the future was like using the innate divination of spells. But in fact, there was the most essential and subtle difference between the two. The innate divination of spells not only had certain errors and variables, but also could easily be sensed and counterattacked by the person being divined, which would eventually change the result of the divination. However, the method of entering the river of history did not have such risks. The innate divination of spells could only calculate the general process and could not see as carefully and accurately as entering the river of history. Just like this time when they rescued Zhongli Shuiqin and the others who were captured and sealed alive. If you use the innate fate theory of the spell to calculate, you might alert Zhongli Qingsong, who has reached the third tribulation immortal realm, and you won't be able to accurately ambush Zhongli Haoyuan and Zhongli Fenghao. With the help of the empty spirit mouse's ability to enter the river of history, Yu Haoran could completely see what was about to happen in the future and prepare the means of defense and counterattack in advance. Therefore, this time, when the immeasurable culpa opened all the variables in the process and the opportunity to break through to the immortal realm, he could control and change them as he wished. However, as Zhongli Qingsong rushed out of the island with a terrifying, murderous aura, Su Yiwen hurriedly suppressed the shock in his heart, dispelling the thoughts in his mind. He looked at Zhongli Qingsong with a gleam of excitement. Yu Haoran, you deserve to die 10,000 times for your crime. Zhongli Qingsong rushed out of the island, his green robe and black hair fluttering in the wind. He glared at Yu Haoran angrily. Zhongli Haoyuan and Zhongli Fenghao weren't just the juniors that were closest to him by blood, they were even trusted aides that he'd been meticulously nurturing. However, they'd been killed by Yu Haoran's ambush and surprise attack. So, how could Zhongli Qingsong not feel pain and rage? Yu Haoran just glanced at Zhongli Qingsong indifferently, then looked at the 8 half-tribulation immortal realm experts behind him. 1 peak 2 tribulation immortal realm expert, 3 peak 1 tribulation immortal realm experts, and 4 middle and high 1 tribulation immortal realm experts. After seeing the number and strength of the half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the Zhongli family, Yu Haoran let out a long sigh of relief. Then, he directly ordered the people in the prince's mansion. Kill them all. The people in the prince's mansion had been ready for a long time. After hearing Yu Haoran's order, they immediately rushed toward the selected opponents. The giant spirit devouring leech directly faced the only peak 2 tribulation immortal realm old ancestor of the Zhongli family. Thaling and the blood void beast, who were controlling Mu Beiying's body, directly attacked the 3 peak 1 tribulation immortal realm old ancestors of the Zhongli family. The 4 divine beasts joined hands to deal with the 4 middle and high 1 tribulation immortal realm old ancestors. As for the remaining martial gods and supreme being old ancestors of the Zhongli family, they were controlled by the life calamity spirit rats, who had advanced to the early stage of the immortal realm and were easily slaughtered by Yusiki and Lu Yuan. Family head, Senior Ming Jing, have you made up your minds? After removing the seals on Zhongli Shuiqin and the others, Yu Haoran looked straight at Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Ming Jing and asked, Emperor's son-in-law, Qingyang has made up his mind. Zhongli Qingyang glanced at the Sunset Island, where he had lived for almost 100 years. The reluctance and nostalgia in his eyes were gradually replaced by sadness and determination. He gritted his teeth and replied, From now on, I, Zhongli Qingyang, am no longer the family head of the Zhongli family, nor am I a member of the Zhongli family. Chapter 2109. Above Sunset Island. Facing Yu Haoran's gaze, Zhongli Mingjing, whose heart had been completely broken, declared without any hesitation. From today onwards, I, Zhongli Mingjing, will completely leave the Zhongli clan and become an ordinary soldier of the prince's mansion. Zhongli Qingsong, who was fighting with Su Hanwen, almost vomited blood when he heard Zhongli Qingyang's declaration. Not only was Zhongli Qingyang a god, but he was also the nominal patriarch of the Zhongli clan. His betrayal would shake the morale of the entire clan. When he heard that the half-tribulation utmost exalted Zhongli Mingjing would rather be an ordinary soldier of the prince's son-in-law's mansion than continue to be the Zhongli clan's ancestor, Zhongli Qingsong was so furious that his entire body started to tremble. This was because Zhongli Mingjing's attitude had not only shaken the morale and foundation of the clan, but it had also made him, the first ancestor of the Zhongli clan, the target of ridicule. In the future, he would never be able to raise his head in front of other powers. Su Hanwen and Zhongli Qingsong were on par in terms of cultivation, strength, insight, and experience. Neither of them had absolute confidence in defeating the other. However, It was precisely because they were on par with each other that Su Hanwen immediately seized the opportunity to attack. When Zhongli Qingsong's emotions fluctuated violently and his reaction became slightly absent-minded due to Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing's declaration. In the end, not only did Su Hanwen completely gain the upper hand, but he also injured Zhongli Qingsong's Dantian and Sea of Consciousness. Zhongli Qingsong could only temporarily give up on punishing Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing and focus on fighting Su Hanwen. After hearing Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing's declaration, Yu Haoran secretly let out a sigh of relief and hurriedly ordered them to leave Sunset Island for the time being. He also ordered Wu Jinjun to leave the pursuit and protect them. Afterwards, he watched the Zhongli clan activate the Autumn Water Soul Falling Formation on Sunset Island. He took a deep breath and took out the Zhu Xian sword. Immediately after, he overdrew 1/3 of his divine power and soul power into the celestial slaying sword. He used the basic sword technique, splitting Mount Hua, and directly slashed at the Autumn Water Soul Falling Formation that guarded the island. Boom! After overdrawing 1/3 of his godly power and soul power, he already had the strength of a peak 1 tribulation immortal expert, together with the immortal slaying sword, which was constantly improving in grade and power. The power of splitting Mount Hua was infinitely close to that of a 2nd tribulation immortal realm expert. As a result, the Autumn Water Soulfall Formation, which was only a mid-supreme grade formation, completely shattered with a deafening boom, revealing several tens of thousands of Zhongli clan members gathered together. The moment the Autumn Water Soulfall Formation was breached, Zhongli Qingsong, who was at an absolute disadvantage, immediately gave orders to the several tens of thousands of clansmen on the island. All clansmen, listen my orders. Immediately overdraw the ancestral bloodline in your body and use the forbidden secret technique, Spring Rejuvenation, to kill Yu Haoran and the people of the prince's mansion. Members of the Zhongli clan, listen up. Although the Patriarch and Senior Mingjing have officially announced that they are leaving the Zhongli clan, the blood relationship between you will never be broken. Zhongli Shuiqin and son-in-law Wu Zhongjun will always be your juniors and juniors. As soon as Zhongli Qingsong finished his orders, Yu Haoran immediately mobilized his soul power and shouted loudly, "As long as you stay where you are, I, Yu Haoran, promise that I won't hurt you at all." Those who overdrew their ancestral bloodline to use the forbidden secret technique following the orders of the old ancestor had their souls destroyed, leaving nothing behind. Those who stayed where they were following Yu Haoran's orders were safe and sound. The members of the Zhongli clan, who were disappointed in the Supremes and the half-tribulation immortal realm old ancestors, naturally chose to follow Yu Haoran's orders since they didn't want to sacrifice themselves for nothing. Therefore, they didn't overdraw their ancestral bloodline or use the forbidden secret technique. They just lowered their heads and looked at their feet. The indifference of the entire clan made Zhongli Qingsong, who was burning with anger, spit out 3 mouthfuls of essence blood. His aura almost fell to the 3rd tribulation immortal realm. The injuries to his mind, Dantian, and soul not only made Su Hanwen's advantage more obvious, but also made him more ambitious. He wanted to kill Zhongli Qingsong and extract the rich eternal green Supreme's essence blood in his body. He wanted to use it to break through to the middle stage of the 3rd tribulation immortal realm. Seeing the wisest choice of the Zhongli clan, Yu Haoran nodded satisfactorily. He then dashed to the center of the palace on the island. Eventually, he stopped in front of a simple 3-story pavilion. Looking at the words Scripture Depository Pavilion written on the plaque, Shi Yin used the ability of the Thaling to control the time and space Victor to uproot the 3-story Scripture Depository Pavilion. Then, he put it into the independent space of the Victor. Seeing this, countless Zhongli clansmen revealed pained and angry expressions. They were distressed that the precious scriptures that the clan had collected and organized for so many years had fallen into someone else's hands. They were angry at the arrogance and incompetence of the old ancestors who couldn't protect the important scripture depository pavilion. After putting the 3-story scripture depository pavilion away, Howard flashed to the treasure pavilion, which was also a 3-story pavilion. He used the same method to put the treasure pavilion into the victor. Then, he came to the center of the palace where there was a pine tree that had lived for so many years. It was over 100 meters in diameter. Howard's actions not only made Zhongli Qingsong nervous, but also made Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing look puzzled. This was because the pine tree that was over 100 meters in diameter was not only personally planted by their ancestor, the eternal green ancestor, but was also refined by Zhongli Qingsong into the clan's secret vault using a special secret method. After countless years of collection from the primordial age, the middle age, the late age, and the present age, the treasures in the secret vault were far beyond imagination. Just the primordial spirit treasures that were born in the primordial chaos alone numbered more than 30, not to mention the thousands of first-class divine veins, tens of thousands of top-grade divine pills, as well as spiritual milk of different ages, exotic flowers and herbs, mental cultivation methods, secret methods, and so on. It could be said that just the divine pills and spiritual veins in the secret vault were enough to easily cultivate 100,000 immortal divine spirit experts. Howard quickly found the exact location of the secret vault in the pine tree with the mysteries of the law of causality and his comprehension of the laws of space. Although he couldn't directly enter the secret vault with his current ability to control the laws of space, he could completely rely on his own strength to completely destroy the secret vault through continuous attacks. Chapter 2110 Sunset Island. Howard, I agree to the marriage between Zhongli Shuiqin and Wu Jingjun. Stop right now. Seeing Howard attacking the pine tree with all his might, Zhongli Qingsong's eyes flashed with a hint of panic. He took the initiative to express his intention to admit defeat and retreat. It's too late to regret now. Howard turned his head to look at Zhongli Qingsong, who had a hint of panic on his face. After rejecting him flatly with a sneer, he began to draw on his divine power and soul with the help of the divine elixir pill to continue increasing the power of his attack. Zhongli Qingsong was already a saint expert at the early stage of the immortal realm. The reason why he was so nervous must be because of the incredible treasures in the secret vault. Damn it! Seeing that Howard not only flatly rejected his request to admit defeat, but also used the power of the elixir to increase the power of his attack on the secret vault, Zhongli Qingsong felt even more nervous. At the same time, he drew on his divine power and soul power to force Su Hanwen back. Then, he desperately rushed towards Howard. However, it was a pity that the injuries to his mind, dantian, and divine soul, as well as the fact that he was distracted, caused him to overdraw his divine power and soul power in exchange for strength. He could barely be on par with Su Hanwen. Therefore, Su Hanwen, who had only taken a step back, not only managed to stop Zhongli Qingsong in an instant, but the willow branch, which was far more powerful than a supreme great offensive weapon, had also severely injured his divine soul, causing his strength to drop to the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm. At this moment, Zhongli Qingsong was truly afraid. This was because he could feel the strong, murderous intent from Su Hanwen's reckless attacks. He knew that Su Hanwen wanted to take advantage of his drop in strength to kill him completely. Boom! At this moment, the pine tree, which had been attacked 8 times in a row, finally collapsed because it could not withstand the 9th attack. At the same time, a green pagoda the size of a basin fell out. This is the innate spirit treasure, the 5 Essences Pagoda, which had disappeared since the beginning of the world. When he saw the green pagoda falling from the trunk of the pine tree, Thalen cried out the origin of the green pagoda, and his soul instantly returned to Howard's knowledge sea. Howard, the Khanate 5 Essences Tower, is the first Khanate spirit treasure born from the primordial chaos. It is also the only Dharma artifact that can help raise the grade of Khanate spirit treasures and Khanate spirit treasures. If the innate five essences tower is integrated into the defensive formation set up by the innate five elements formation flags, the defensive power of the formation will be able to withstand the attack of a peak second tribulation immortal expert. If I can fuse the innate five essences pagoda into my main body, the space-time victor, its defensive and offensive power will completely surpass the Hautian seal. At the same time, my godly soul body can break through to the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm in a short time. After hearing Thaling's introduction of the innate five essences pagoda, Howard ordered without the slightest hesitation. Thaling, after transferring all the precious treasures in the innate five essences pagoda into the victor space, integrate them into your main body. Strive to become a peak second tribulation immortal expert before the Zhou clan's expedition. Thank you, Howard. He knew that if he had asked for the innate five essences pagoda, Howard would have agreed without hesitation. However, since Howard had taken the initiative to give him the innate five essences pagoda, it meant that his position and importance in Howard's heart had not diminished at all. This made Thaling feel very gratified. After thanking him, Thaling immediately put away the innate five essences pagoda. Then he mobilized his divine sense to inspect and transfer the treasures in the innate five essences pagoda. When his divine sense swept through the hundreds of independent spaces in the innate five essences pagoda, he saw mountains of divine veins, spiritual elixirs, divine elixirs, innate spiritual treasures, supreme celestial artifacts, secret techniques, and divine senses. Thaling couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. And when he saw that in one of the independent spaces with an area of nearly 30,000 square meters, there were 36 enormous crystals that were as large as hills and emitted an aura that could make one's spirit tremble, his current excitement could no longer be described with a gasp of cold air. Howard, do you know why Zhongli Qingsong is so nervous about the innate five essences pagoda? After taking a total of 9 deep breaths and barely suppressing his excitement, Thaling asked excitedly. I don't know. Howard answered honestly. Because in the independent spaces of the innate five essences pagoda, there are 36 chaos crystals that contain sufficient chaos spiritual qi. After hearing Thaling's reply, Howard suddenly felt as though his little heart had stopped beating. He immediately used his divine sense to enter the innate five essences pagoda. After seeing the 36 chaos crystals in the independent spaces of the innate five essences pagoda and absorbing a trace of chaos spiritual qi, Howard, who had recovered his heartbeat, immediately took out the immortal exterminating sword and gave orders to the people in the prince's mansion. Everyone in the prince's mansion, listen up. Use your strongest means to kill Zhongli Qingsong immediately. The 36 chaos crystals that contained an enormous amount of chaos spiritual qi were definitely enough to cultivate 36 third tribulation immortal realm experts. If the terrifying experts and saint experts in the 9 great forbidden lands, as well as the supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void, knew about it, they would definitely rush over to snatch it. After all, when the giant spirit devouring leech had unintentionally revealed the chaos spirit stones he had cultivated for countless years, he had immediately attracted the pursuit of countless supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts. Needless to say, the 36 chaos crystals that contained even more chaos spiritual qi and were even purer. Boom! Zhongli Qingsong, whose strength had dropped to the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm, was already at a disadvantage under Su Hanwen's all-out attack. He was in a perilous situation. Now, he was facing the giant spirit devouring ant, whose strength was at the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm. He was facing Howard, Thaling, and the blood void beast, whose strength was infinitely close to the second tribulation immortal realm. He was facing the 4 divine beasts, whose strength was at the first tribulation immortal realm, and Yusiki and the long-armed ape, whose strength was at the first tribulation immortal realm. As a result, Zhongli Qingsong's divine soul was completely sealed by Su Hanwen using the willow branch while suffering even more severe injuries. Little friend Yu, as the first-generation direct descendant of Eternal Green Supreme, Zhongli Qingsong's inherited bloodline contains extremely pure wood element essence. While sealing Zhongli Qingsong's divine soul, Su Hanwen immediately used a special secret technique to completely seal Zhongli Qingsong's physical body. Then he used divine thought transmission to tell him the real reason why he sealed Zhongli Qingsong. Chapter 2111. Sunset Island. Senior Su, take a look at this. Hearing that Su Hanwen had tried his best to seal Zhongli Qingsong's divine soul and body in order to obtain the pure chaotic energy, Yu Haoran suddenly felt a little happy. He hurriedly took a chaotic gem from an empty storage ring and gave it to Su Hanwen. As soon as his consciousness entered the storage ring given by Yu Haoran, Su Hanwen was stunned by the hill-like chaotic gem. The chaotic spiritual energy contained in the chaotic gem was enough to help him reach the peak of the third tribulation immortal realm in the shortest time possible. The effect was thousands or even tens of thousands of times better than the wood element essence. This was also the biggest difference between a creature born in the chaos and other creatures. After giving Su Hanwen a look to keep it a secret, Yu Haoran raised his head and looked at the sky above Sunset Island. He found that all the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal ancestors of the Zhongli family had been killed. He directly flew up and ordered the people of the prince's mansion, "Go back and get married." Since they had left the Zhongli family and joined the prince's mansion, Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing didn't feel sorry for the loss of the secret treasury, nor did they want to return to Sunset Island. They followed the people of the prince's mansion and left the home where they had lived for countless years. Everyone, listen to my order. Immediately contribute all your spiritual veins and spiritual stones to reactivate the defense of the Autumn Water Soul Formation to prevent some villains with ulterior motives from coming in. Just as Yu Haoran and the people of the prince's mansion left Sunset Island, a peak 9th grade martial god realm ancestor flew up and reminded the people of the Zhongli family with a solemn expression. In response, the people of the Zhongli family didn't continue to disobey the ancestors' order. They contributed all their spiritual veins and spiritual stones. Because the Zhongli family, which had lost its supremes and half-tribulation immortal experts, had become a piece of fat meat in the eyes of others. They could take a bite out of it at any time. Zhengjun, Shuiqin, I'm sorry. The process of the wedding was so simple and violent. Appearing on the shell of the black tortoise, Yu Haoran apologized to Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin who were close to him. After all, compared to the wedding ceremony of the wedding ceremony, this time, there wasn't a huge procession or bridal sedan, nor was there any dowry from the bride's family. In fact, there weren't any guests from all over the world who came to give their blessings. Senior, Zhongli Qingyang, Shuiqin, Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Qingyang and Qingyang said, holding Wu Zhongjuan's hand tightly. A happy smile appeared on Zhongli Shuiqin's face. Supremes and half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void, terror, and saint experts in the 9 forbidden zones, all forces and experts in the Tianxian continent. Listen up. Looking at the happy smile on Zhongli Shuiqin's face and the guilt and self-blame in Wu Zhongjuan's eyes, Yu Haoran suddenly remembered the promise he had made when he brought Wu Zhengjun to join the 100 Qi Gate in Qingyun Peak's Feng Qingyun. He suddenly raised his head and used the space rule to coordinate with his voice. He shouted toward the endless void and the Tianxian continent. In 2 hours, my junior Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin will have a grand wedding ceremony in the prince's mansion. At that time, I'll shut down all the offensive and defensive formations in the prince's mansion. We sincerely welcome everyone to attend the wedding. When they heard Yu Haoran's risky move, not only were Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin so moved that they did not know what to say, Even the blood-foe beast and long-armed ape had complicated and gratified expressions in their eyes. After instructing the black tortoise to slow down, Yu Haoran returned to the ancestral dragon's back and told Qin Lingfei to prepare some top-notch spirit fruits and spirit tea in advance so that they could serve the supremes and half-tribulation immortal experts who were coming for the wedding. With the black tortoise deliberately maintaining its speed, the group successfully returned to the prince consort's residence 2 hours later. Then, Qin Lingfei and the Sword Without Trace, who were the eldest sisters-in-law, brought Zhongli Shuiqin to a brand new courtyard in the mansion to freshen up. Yu Haoran, who was the eldest brother, brought Wu Zhengjun to the gate of the mansion to welcome the wedding guests. 10 minutes had passed, and not a single guest had come. Half an hour had passed, and still not a single guest had come. An hour had passed, and still not a single guest had come. At this moment, Yu Haoran's face was as gloomy as water. At this moment, his heart was filled with a strong desire to kill. It was normal for forces like the Yushu Temple, the Skycloud sect, the Lan family, and the Zhou family, who had deep grudges against him, to not attend the wedding. However, forces like the Sky Marshal sect, the Qian family, and the Bailey family, who had a good relationship with him, did not attend the wedding after receiving his invitation. This was very abnormal and strange. Thinking of this, Yu Haoran flew to the top of the mansion. Then he released his spiritual sense, which was not weaker than the immortal realm, and swept through all the forces in the Tianxian continent. Afterwards, he discovered that regardless of whether it was the forces and experts with whom he had a grudge or those with whom he had a good relationship, they were all quietly staying in their respective places of cultivation. A chilling feeling slowly surged into his heart, and a ruthless gaze gradually appeared in his eyes. Good, very good, very good. After the voice wrapped in his spiritual sense spread across the Tianxian continent, Yu Haoran said good 3 times in a row and then returned to the front of the mansion. Let's go back. After instructing Wu Zhengjun and Manager Jiang, who were standing in front of the mansion, Yu Haoran walked back to the mansion with a gloomy face. Then, he controlled the mansion's formation hub with his spiritual sense, and after reactivating the mansion's attack and defense formations, he instructed Qin Lingfei and Manager Jiang. Let's start the wedding. Although everyone in the prince's mansion, including Wu Zhengjun, Zhongli, and Shuiqin, tried their best to show their joy and create a lively atmosphere to cheer up Yu Haoran, the feeling of being isolated by everyone still made the wedding seem more depressing. As Wu Zhengjun's eldest brother, Yu Haoran turned and left the front yard after drinking the wedding wine offered by the newlyweds. He returned to the pavilion in the side yard, and then looked in the direction of the central region. After leaving the victor and appearing in the sea of consciousness, Thaling asked worriedly, Yu Haoran, are you all right? Thaling, don't worry, I'm fine. Chapter 2112. Inside the prince's mansion, Yu Haoran, the top forces and experts did not attend the wedding. They must be worried about your identity as the chosen one and your ability to control fate through the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Destiny Spirit Rat. Thaling could not help but worry as he could feel the coldness of Yu Haoran's aura. As for some of the forces and experts who used to be on good terms with you, I'm afraid they are too afraid to come because they were affected by the battle between Buddhism and Taoism on Spirited Mountain, and you slaughtered millions of Buddhist believers. Sigh. Yu Haoran could not help but sigh after hearing Thaling's words of comfort. The reason why the forces and experts who were on good terms with him did not attend the wedding, other than what Thaling had just said, was probably related to his current situation of being the enemy of the entire world. After all, only the top experts knew that the Chosen One, together with the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Destiny Spirit Rat, could play a decisive role in the immeasurable calamity. After a sigh, Yu Haoran withdrew his gaze from the central region and returned to the banquet in the front yard. He then used a spell to condense millions of mirrors. Then, he used his divine thoughts to control millions of mirrors and spread them all over the Tianxian continent. The scene of the banquet in the front yard appeared in the mirrors. Then he began to take out 16 first-level spiritual fruits from his storage ring and victor, chalcedony ganoderma, golden blood ginseng, dragon heart ice fruit, Buddha heart fruit, ice spirit fruit, incense candle fruit, green lotus fruit, bone spirit fruit, snow lotus seed, bodhi seed, purple smoke fruit, fire dragon fruit, mysterious yellow ginseng, heaven and earth arcane yellow fruit, hong meng purple fruit, and ginseng fruit. Among the 16 rank 1 spiritual fruits, even the chalcedony ganoderma, which was the least effective, could allow a martial honorable or martial grand emperor realm warrior to become an immortal divine spirit expert. At this moment, the person who was enjoying these top-notch spirit fruits was neither Yu Haoran, the master of the prince consort manor, nor were his close friends. Instead, they were the elite soldiers of the North Road and the disciples of the 100 Gate. This immediately attracted the greedy gazes of countless forces and experts. After taking out 16 kinds of top-grade spirit fruits, Yu Haoran then took out 100-year-old, 1,000-year-old, 10,000-year-old, and 100,000-year-old spirit liquids and spirit mill from his storage ring. He was still using them on the elite soldiers and disciples of various sections. After taking out the spiritual liquid and spiritual milk, Yu Haoran acted like a prodigal son as he took out more than 50 types of level 1 to level 9 divine pills, as well as 13 types of divine pills that targeted God power, soul power, perception, and laws. At this moment, not to mention the ordinary powerhouses and elite warriors of the Tianxian land, even the top powerhouses and elite warriors revealed looks of envy and jealousy. After distributing all the divine elixirs and holy elixirs to everyone present as a return gift for their participation in the wedding banquet, Yu Haoran took the opportunity to take back all the mirrors and then fully activated the defensive formation of the horse manor. After that, he gestured to Wu Xinjun, Zhongli, and Xu Weiqin, who were leaving the bridal chamber to toast, Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace, Yu Siki and Lu Yuan, Yun Xiang and Fong Man, Su Hanwen and Palace, Xiang Muling and Qing Feng, as well as the blood-void beast and the long-armed ape. All of you follow me. After leaving the banquet in the front yard, Yu Haoran brought everyone to the pavilion in the side yard. Yu Haoran, Qin Lingfei, Su Hanwen, and Wu Zhengjun sat on the stone chairs in the pavilion while the rest stood outside. Fouling, Brother Ran, please continue to set up a few more top shielding and concealing formations. After using his mind to inform Thaling and his second clone in the Sea of Consciousness, Yu Haoran's gaze swept across everyone present. He slowly closed his eyes and began to choose the treasures that would be given to everyone for the last time. Senior Su, these are the 24 divine, sea-calming pearls that were nurtured in the chaos. They can form the strongest defensive and trapping formations. They will be your trump card in the immeasurable calamity. After the pagoda spirit and his second clone rearranged the 9 formations that could shield and conceal the prying of divine thoughts, Yu Haoran took out the 24 connate numinous treasure, sea-calming divine pearls that he had collected when he annihilated the Buddhists of Numinous Mountain and gave them to Su Hanwen. This is too expensive. Su Hanwen, who hurriedly got up, hurriedly refused. In response, Yu Haoran just smiled and shook his head. He looked at Qin Lingfei, who was sitting beside him, and took out a storage ring, an innate 5 elements array flag, and a Saint Grade Tao Source Pill from the victor. The Saint Grade Tao Source Pill will help you advance to supremacy. The Chaos Crystal in the storage ring will help you break through to the half-immortal realm. The innate 5 elements array flag will keep you safe. Qin Lingfei nodded and put away the storage ring, the array flag, and the Saint Grade Pill with a happy smile on her face. Wu Trace. Yu Haoran waved at the sword without trace, who was standing outside the pavilion, and took out 2 storage rings, a flag that emitted soul power fluctuations, and a Saint Grade Tao Source Pill from the victor. The Saint Grade Tao Source Pill will help you advance to supremacy. The Chaos Crystal in the storage ring will help you and Divine Beast Vermilion Bird break through to the half-immortal realm. The Fox Clan's treasure, the Soul Amassing Flag, will keep you safe. Although Jin Wuhan didn't refuse or accept the storage ring, banner, and pills, the Vermilion Bird, who had requested to leave the pet space, bowed and thanked Jian Wuhan very solemnly. After all, she also knew how precious and heaven-defying the chaos crystal was. "Thank you, Prince Consort." Yu Haoran waved his hand, indicating the divine beast vermilion bird didn't need to be so polite. He looked at Wu Jingjun and took out 2 storage rings and the yin-yang mirror of life and death. "These 2 chaos crystals will help you and divine beast black tortoise break through to the half-immortal realm. The yin-yang mirror of life and death will help you fight the immeasurable calamity." "Thank you, senior brother." "Thank you, Prince Consort." After accepting the storage rings and the yin-yang mirror of life and death, Wu Jingjun and divine beast black tortoise bowed and thanked him. "Sister-in-law Shuiqin." Yu Haoran waved at Zhongli Shuiqin and also took out a storage ring with chaos crystal, a connate spiritual treasure, and a Saint Grey Dao source pill. Next, whether it was Xiang Muling, who had just broken through to Marshal Venerable, or long-armed ape and blood void beast, who didn't want to submit in the beginning, they all received 1 or 2 storage rings with chaos crystal, Saint Grade pills, and different types of connate spiritual treasures. After Xiang Muling put away the storage rings, connate spiritual treasures, divine pills, and Saint Grade pills, Yu Haoran signaled Thaling to control the space-time, Victor to leave the spiritual sea and float in the sky above the courtyard. "In the next 5 days, I will ask Thaling to activate the space-time Victor's time acceleration space. All of you can use the treasures I just gave you to increase your cultivation and strength as much as you can." After leaving the pavilion, Yu Haoran raised his head and looked at the floating space-time Victor as he instructed everyone present. Chapter 21:13. Inside the prince's mansion, Thaling used the time crystal and space crystal provided by the Void Rat and the Blood Void Beast to increase the time acceleration ability of the Victor to the limit of 100 years in the tower and 1 day outside. With almost 500 years of sufficient cultivation time, and the help of the Chaos Crystals and countless top-tier cultivation resources, the cultivation and strength of the people in the prince's son-in-law's residence had undergone a qualitative leap and transformation. On the first day of cultivation, Lu Yuan, Wu Zhengjun, Palace, and Qing Feng successfully passed the Supreme Lightning Tribulation and became supreme experts. On the second day of cultivation, Qin Lingfei and her pet beast Blue Jiao, the sword without trace, Zhongli Shui Qin, Yun Xiang and her pet beast Du Yuan, and Fong Man and her brother all successfully passed the Supreme Lightning Tribulation. At the same time, Yusiki and the long-armed ape also successfully intercepted a wisp of immortal aura between heaven and earth and successfully advanced to the immortal realm. On the third day of cultivation, Qin Lingfei, the sword without trace, Lu Yuan, Wu Zhengjun, Palace, Qing Yun, Yun Xiang, and Fong Man successfully intercepted a wisp of immortal aura between heaven and earth and successfully advanced to the immortal realm. At the same time, Yusiki, the blood void beast, and the long-armed ape also successfully advanced to the immortal realm, becoming terrifying experts. On the fourth day of cultivation, on the fifth day of cultivation, after Thaling removed the independent space where time was accelerated, the people in the prince's mansion, whose cultivation, strength, state of mind, and vision had undergone a tremendous change, all gathered in front of Yu Haoran. At this moment, Yu Haoran's cultivation didn't change at all compared to 5 days ago. He was still in the complete 10th level martial god realm. At this moment, Yu Haoran, whose cultivation didn't change at all, emitted a terrifying aura that even Su Hanwen, whose cultivation had reached the peak of the middle stage of the immortal realm, vaguely sensed. Yu Haoran raised his head to look at his family and friends, whose cultivation and strength had undergone tremendous changes, and nodded with satisfaction. Then, he stood up and looked to the north. Then, he ordered Wu Zhengjun, "Zhengjun, gather the mansion's army and take the lead in conquering Xianyang, the capital of Great Qin." "Yes." Wu Zhengjun turned around and left the courtyard. Then, he used his divine thought to inform Lan Rong and Lian to gather the army of the North Army and the 100 Chi Gate disciples to rush to the mansion square in the front yard as soon as possible. Let's go. After bidding farewell to his family and friends, Yu Haoran strode out of the courtyard and headed to the mansion square. Under the nourishment of the innate spiritual chi and the assistance of the best spiritual fruits, spiritual liquids, spiritual milk, and spiritual pills, even the most ordinary elite soldiers and the disciples of the sects who had reached the end of their lifespans could break through the limits of their talent and lifespan and reach the martial venerable realm. Looking at the 60,000 elite soldiers and the less than 1,000 disciples of the sects, Yu Haoran didn't encourage them or say any nonsense. He soared into the sky and gave an order. Let's go. A wedding without any guests was like a slap in the face. It would definitely arouse Yu Haoran's displeasure and anger. According to his character of seeking revenge for the slightest grievance, he would definitely take bloody revenge after the wedding. Countless experts in the Endless Void and the Tianxian continent had been paying attention to the prince's mansion. Therefore, when Yu Haoran led the people of the prince's mansion out of the mansion, countless forces and experts in the Endless Void and the Tianxian continent became nervous. Among them, the ancient God clan in Xianyang City, the ancient demon clan in the Hengduan mountain range, and the Zhou clan in the Dark Lake mountain range immediately gathered all the martial gods, supremes, and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in their clans to defend against Yu Haoran's sudden attack. Xianyang City was less than 10,000 miles away. To the people of the prince's mansion, whose cultivation and strength had undergone earth-shaking changes, it was just the distance of a breath. Before the experts of the ancient God clan gathered, Yu Haoran, who led the people of the prince's mansion, arrived outside Xianyang City. Then, under the leadership of Wu Zhijun, Lu Yuan, and the others, the 60,000 elite soldiers and hundreds of disciples of the sect surrounded the entire Xianyang City. At the same time, Yu Haoran used the power of space rules to seal the entire void and underground of Xianyang City to prevent anyone from taking the opportunity to escape. Boom! Then he took out the immortal slaying sword and blasted open the defensive formation of Xianyang City. Then, he pointed the sword at Shun Jie and threatened, "Either get out of Xianyang City immediately, or your clan will be annihilated." Facing Yu Haoran's threat, the ninth prince, Shun Jie's face immediately darkened. He was dissatisfied and angry with Yu Haoran, but he also felt helpless and unwilling to accept reality. As more and more experts of the royal family woke up, Shun Jie, who had just broken through to the martial god realm, had lost his position and power to rule the entire clan. After hearing Yu Haoran's threat, a young man from the ancient god clan, who looked 60% to 70% similar to Shun Jie, sneered disdainfully. "Who do you think you are? How dare you threaten the ancient god clan, who has the noblest bloodline in the world?" Two clan. From Yu Haoran's point of view, the taunting of a young man from the ancient god clan, who looked 60% to 70% similar to Shun Jie, indicated the attitude of the ancient god clan. Therefore, he did not continue to talk nonsense and waved his sword at the crowd. Apart from Yu Haoran, Su Hanwen, Thaling, the king of hell, and the blood void beast, the rest of the people from the prince's mansion immediately charged into Xianyang City with murderous intent. Damn it! First, it was arrogant taunts, then a battle between the top experts, and finally a negotiation and departure. This was an unspoken rule that had been formed in the ancient times, Middle Ages, and recent ages. However, no one had expected Yu Haoran to break the unspoken rule that had been maintained for countless years and start a battle to annihilate the entire clan. This caused the young man from the ancient god clan, who had temporarily replaced Shun Jie, to curse inwardly. Then, he spread his white wings and charged forward. However, when the two sides exchanged blows, the experts from the ancient god clan were extremely shocked to find that the strength of the people from the prince's mansion had increased by at least hundreds or even thousands of times compared to the battle on Sunset Island 5 days ago. This also caused the defense line of the ancient god clan to collapse instantly. 9 emperor's preceptors, Hurry up and wake my father up. Seeing countless clansmen falling down like raindrops, and seeing Yusiki, Wu Jingjun, and the others, who had displayed the terrifying strength of a two-tribulation immortal expert, the young man from the ancient god clan hurriedly turned his head and shouted loudly at the ancient god trial field, which had been completely opened. When the young man from the ancient god clan had just finished shouting, a shocking aura and momentum gradually emerged from the depths of the ancient god trial field. The strength of a three-tribulation immortal expert at the peak of the early stage. After carefully sensing the shocking aura and momentum from the depths of the ancient god trial field, Yu Haoran pointed out the opponent's true cultivation and turned his head to give an order to the giant spirit devouring ant and the blood void beast. Chapter 21:14. Xianyang's City. Yes, yes. The giant spirit devouring ant and the blood void beast responded at the same time and rushed toward the ancient god test field. At the same time, they activated the saint energy of the immortal realm and crushed all the martial gods and supreme masters in front of them into powder. How is this possible? Looking at the giant spirit devouring ant and the blood void beast, the 9 emperors preceptors of the primordial god clan were in disbelief. After all, in the battle on Sunset Island 5 days ago, the giant spirit devouring ant was only at the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm, and the blood void beast was only at the peak of the first tribulation immortal realm. In fact, it was not only the top experts of the primordial god clan who were in disbelief. Even the terrifying experts and saint energy experts in the 9 forbidden zones and the endless void were shocked. This meant that the prince's mansion had completely surpassed all the top forces and became the first superpower in the Tianxian continent. When the giant spirit devouring ant and the blood void beast rushed to the depths of the ancient god trial field, they launched their strongest attack together before the ancient divine emperor woke up. Boom! With a series of violent booms, the ancient divine emperor, who had slumbered for countless years, was slain by the huge spirit devouring ant and the bloodfoe beast before he could display his might to the world. Moreover, they collected a lake of essence blood from him. Then, the blood void beast used the power of the rules of space to give the blood essence to Wu Jingjun, who was chasing the 9 emperors' preceptors. Senior, thank you. After cupping his hands to express his gratitude, Wu Jingjun directly opened his mouth and swallowed the essence blood. While continuing to chase the 9 emperors' teachers, he began to accumulate the potential to break through to the third tribulation immortal realm with the help of the ancient divine emperor's essence blood. The ancient divine emperor at the peak of the initial stage of the immortal realm was the only trump card for the primordial god clan to turn the tables. Now that the trump card had been destroyed, the primordial god clan only had 2 choices. They could either fight until the end and be slaughtered or admit defeat and get out of Xianyang City in humiliation. Faced with the threat of death and the crisis of extinction, the divine sons and princes of the primordial god clan were all lost in thought. Brother Blackrat continued to weaken the fate of the ancient god clan. Today, I will completely remove the ancient god clan from the Tianxian land. Yu Haoran vaguely guessed that they might surrender when he saw the dozen or so experts of the ancient god clan gathered together. He had a strong murderous intent in his heart and didn't intend to give them any chance to live. Perhaps they would have a chance to make a comeback. Master, it's done. The life calamity spirit rat, who had also obtained a chaos crystal, had successfully advanced to the early second tribulation immortal realm. Therefore, under his control, 99% of the primordial god clan experts almost fell from the clouds due to the sudden disappearance of their divine power and soul power. As for the people in the prince's mansion, they immediately unleashed their martial skills and secret skills that could cause mass destruction. They began to slaughter the primordial god clan experts. Prince Consort, we admit defeat and are willing to give up Xianyang City immediately. The sudden disappearance of the divine power and soul power in their bodies, as well as the loss of their control over the laws and rules, caused the primordial god clan's dozens of godsons and princes to immediately make the decision to surrender. They also asked the Shanjia, who was familiar with Yuhaoran, to step forward and admit defeat. It's too late. Yuhaoran flatly rejected Shanjia, whose eyes were filled with anger and hatred, without a trace of emotion in his eyes. Damn it, let's fight it out with him. Yuhaoran flatly rejected their surrender, which indicated that he was determined to exterminate the entire primordial god clan. A hot-tempered prince cursed through gritted teeth and immediately rushed over with murderous intent. Unfortunately, under the control of the life calamity spirit rat, the prince of the primordial god clan, who originally had the strength of a peak first tribulation immortal realm expert, was only left with the strength of a first-stage martial grandmaster. He didn't even have the chance to get close to Yuhaoran before he was split into two halves by an elite soldier in the prince's mansion, let alone risking his life to perish together with Yuhaoran. Immediately after, the elite soldier, whose cultivation had reached the peak of a ninth-stage martial grandmaster, held a divine realm-long spear and directly slaughtered the dozen or so most important princes and princes of the primordial god clan. Looking at the hundreds of thousands of primordial god clansmen left, Yuhaoran stretched out his hand and flicked out two small flames, one black and one white. They were like soybeans, and a trace of doting appeared in his eyes as he exhorted, "Go, devour and absorb the energy in the holy wings to your heart's content. Strive to have the strength to devour more powerful heavenly flames as soon as possible, and then achieve the transformation of your quality and physique." After hearing Yuhaoran's exhortation, the two small flames, one black and one white, were like children who hadn't yet understood anything. They playfully pounced on the white wings on the back of ninth-stage primordial god clan expert, Emperor Wu. Immediately after, 3 pairs of white wings instantly turned into ashes. Then, 2 special flames floated toward Yuhaoran. In response, Yuhaoran gently waved his sleeves and sent the 2 special flames back to the 2 black and white flames. He smiled and exhorted, "Now, I no longer need the energy of this flame to increase my cultivation and strength. So, you should use it to increase your grade." After hearing Yuhaoran's exhortation, the 2 black and white flames directly merged with the refined flame energy. The size of the 2 flames also increased from the size of a soybean to that of a cherry. Next, the constantly growing black and white flames began to frantically devour and absorb the flame origin energy contained in the holy wings of the primordial god clan experts that had fallen. Glancing at the primordial god clan experts that were less than 100,000, Yuhaoran waved his hand to remove the seal on Xianyang City. He then turned his head and instructed Steward Jiang. "Steward Jiang, lead 100 palace maids and guards to reorganize Xianyang City. Then, go to the prince's mansion to welcome the first prince to take over the entire Xianyang City." "This old servant obeys," Steward Jiang responded excitedly. He then led the palace maids and guards that had already been prepared and went straight to the newly rebuilt imperial palace. "Let's go." After the last primordial god clan expert was killed, Yuhaoran ordered indifferently. Then, he soared into the sky and went straight to the Hengduan mountain range. However, when he led the people from the prince's mansion to the Hengduan mountain range, he was surprised to find that all the demonic beasts and exotic beasts of the primordial god clan had already escaped from the deep pit in the mountain range. Yuhaoran didn't care about this at all. He used his divine thought to scan the entire secret realm in the deep pit. After confirming that there were no demonic beasts and exotic beasts, he continued to lead the people from the prince's mansion to the central region. In front of the Twin Ox Mountain, which was the border between the southern region and the central region, Yuhaoran waved his hand to signal the people from the prince's mansion to wait for him. Then he appeared at the top of the Twin Ox Mountain in a flash. Alas! Looking at Sun Wukong, who had been in the state of epiphany for more than 7 days, and had successfully advanced to the early stage of the third tribulation immortal realm, he couldn't help but sigh and congratulate him. I hope you can use this time's chi, deviation, and epiphany to completely eliminate the tyranny in your bloodline. Then you can smoothly climb to the peak of martial Tao. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.